Beautiful night tonight. And I couldn't sleep. It's still kind of early tonight. About to be midnight. So I thought, why not just enjoy the world for what it will be, for what it won't be in the next 3 years, maybe even sooner. Anyways, so there was a Facebook article out today. I was just minding my own business, and I came across this story, or this article, mind you. And it talked about New York City is supposed to have some sort of wage hike. Like they're increasing the minimum wage to $30 an hour. Am I hearing that right? $30 an hour, bro. And so, of course, when these type of stories break out and you hear about wage hikes, you're going to get different opinions on it. Some people are going to be like, man, I'm going to be making all this money. I'm going to be making X amount. So if you're making like $14 an hour, you're basically getting like double or a little bit higher than double or whatever the case is. So it's like a big victory if you're an employee and you're like, great, I'm getting, X amount or whatever. And this is how much I'm going to make on my check and blah, 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 blah. And this could really help pay some extra bills. And the $30 an hour is going to be some sort of celebration. I used to get all into that. I remember back in 2015, they talked about the fight for $15 an hour, which most places nowadays pay around that because most jobs, they can't survive on $7 an hour. Like no one's going to want to work for seven, even that's the minimum wage. Currently, the nationwide minimum wage is like $7.25. Most jobs pay about 11 and up, relatively, and some jobs like at Walmart they pay about $14 an hour. Certain other jobs pay around 20. It just depends on where you go apply, what the job is, what the skills that are required, blah 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 blah. And so, whenever the debate comes about raising wages, people get caught into the mathematical part of it. They say, oh, we're making more money. So let's just go ahead and raise the wages to like 30, 40, $50 an hour. And that's just going to be, that's just going to be the answer and all that. And, from a mathematical standpoint, absolutely. Like, let's say if you're at $20 an hour, right? So you get 40 hours a week, you do the $30, right? So 10 times 40 would be 400. So you'd get 400 extra on your check times that by what, 4 weeks. So if you get paid every bi-weekly or every 2 weeks, so that would be what, 1,600 a month. So it's like an extra 1,600. Now that's before taxes, of course, right? So that's just before the taxes. It's just like what I think it's your net pay or what you're grossing and then your net. So your grosses, I think it's before taxes, nets after the tax. So, it's easy to fall into these traps. And I used to be real guilty of it. When I am working at this new job, I went from $20.91 an hour to, I think it's like right now it's at 24, and then I got like another dollar raise. It's at 25. And even at 25 an hour, and I'm working a shit ton of hours, I'm talking about like 60, 70 hours a week. Sometimes I'm doing a 16-hour shift, a 12-hour shift, and back door another 16. And it gets grueling, And then when you get your check, you're like, yeah, I made all this extra money. But then by the time they rape you in taxes and all that, it doesn't really feel like you're making anything. And with the inflation cost, the higher wages, the cost of living has increased. Not to mention the gas prices have already jumped up to 320, at least in my state when it was originally $2.30 an hour. I mean, a gallon. Now it's jumped up a dollar. So now you're talking about everything else going up because the cost of transporting goods and services is going to go up as well. Energy bill is going to go up. This isn't good, right? So everyone says, well, the answer to that is just to raise the wage, and that's the answer, and that's the way to settle it. And I'm just telling you now, even if they do raise it to $30 an hour, and let's say you have a job that's going to maintain the 40 hours a week, it's still not going to be enough. There's guys that I work with that make 40, 50, 60, $70 an hour. and they are still struggling. I'm just telling you. And maybe if you're single with no kid and you're living like, maybe like in a decent apartment, like not too bad, but not too fancy, the rent's like 11, 1200, and that's more reasonable. But if you have kids and a family, oh my God, it's going to be a lot more added bills. I could just imagine, if you got a family of three and you have a wife, three kids, I could just imagine how much the bills are going to be. So yeah, Rob, I see you in there. Give me a second. I'll respond to your comments. Don't think I'm ignoring you, but I used to be guilty of falling for these wage hike traps because I always thought, well, 20 is greater than 16, 25 is greater than 17, 30 is greater than 20, 40 is greater than 30, 50 is greater. So we always look at it from like a number scale, and we think that that's going to make our lives better. But then you realize when you get paid that much, they just rape you for more taxes anyway. So the more you make the tax bracket, the higher the tax bracket, they rape you in taxes, literally. They take a lot. My cousin makes $49 an hour, and guess how much they take out in his taxes? He makes $2,700 a week. And that sounds like a lot, right? So you're talking about roughly under 10 grand a month. Guess how much they take out of his taxes? They take out $1,000 out of each check. So they take out $4,000 of that in taxes. So that $10,000 net, the gross pay, it drops to $6,000 instantly. When you're on that higher tax bracket, man, they get your ass. Now, of course, you may get some of that back in your tax. Of course, it goes towards your retirement. But man, if you even live long enough to see retirement, you may not even see any of that money. I've known 5 people, 5 officers that have died during retirement age, didn't even make it to see retirement, put in 30, 40 years in the service and dead. They didn't even get to retire, 30, 35 years in the service and dead. And they died. So they didn't even get to live long enough to enjoy the fruits of the labor. And then imagine, even if, let's say, you do make it to 70 and you're lucky, you may not even live long enough to enjoy the fruits of the labor. Who says you're going to live to 90 or 100? And even then, are you going to be fully healthy? Are you going to be able to walk around? Are you going to be blind? I mean, there's all those health conditions are considered part of the equation. How long are you going to actually live to enjoy that retirement, dude? Because everyone's like, oh, 66 is the retirement age. I'm like, shit, you may not make it to that. There's no guarantees that you're going to make it to that, or 75. And let's say you do, by the grace of God, hopefully you do live that long, that you live at least 10 or 15 years to enjoy somewhat of a retirement. There's no guarantees. I've met 5 people, or know of 5 people who have died 30, 35 years on the work and didn't even get to enjoy the fruits of their labor. So even though like you make all this money, extra money, who really knows how is that one to say it's really going to matter? Because by the time, like I said, we're in hyperinflation now, our taxes are being misused, possibility of the fact that the dollar might collapse, World War III is on the brink, hyperinflation. Yes, we're living in hyperinflation. All right. Energy costs are expected to rise. Retirement's probably going to, Social Security might be gone in 10 years because we just don't have the money to pay people. And the only way you can really get any of that money is you have to raise the taxes. But man, we've already gotten so many of our taxes raised, and then you misuse the money anyway, even when you raise it. We are cooked. I was telling people this. I said we are fucking cooked, and I'm just trying to be nice about this. No, the thing is I'm not saying that the wages need to be kept down. This is what we need to answer Brum from the Brum. This is what let me tell him what I think the answer is. I believe we need tax reform in this country, and that we also need term limits on these politicians because they're literally stealing our money. Like they're literally stealing our tax dollars. And then not to mention they're printing up money anyway, so then the dollar that you're making doesn't mean anything. because then they're just printed up out of thin air. So just your dollar just loses more value because you're telling me I'm working and busting my ass to make money just for you to print money and give it away. That doesn't make any sense. So then you're telling me the dollar I work for doesn't mean anything now. The thing is people assume that increasing the wages is the quick answer. I'm telling you, it's not going to matter at the end when the dollar collapses. It doesn't matter. They could raise it $100 an hour, and you think, oh man, that's fuck. Now see that sounds good, and on paper, sure it does, because you look at the number. But technically, when the way that this is going with the inflation and everything, it's going to collapse anyway. And so you could be making $100 an hour for, let's say, 5 years. And then all of a sudden the dollar just completely collapses. Imagine all that money you have in the bank just doesn't mean anything. But like all the money you work for and everything, it's like a snowball effect. It's like, yeah, I'm sitting on all this money now, but it's not going to mean anything in 3 years. It looks like we're headed to digital currency. So it's just like basically we're just working for a paperless piece of shit trail. I mean, I don't mean to sound like negative Nancy. I'm just being honest, just from my observation. Looking from the outside in, I'm just saying this is what it looks like. I agree with socialism, communism, capitalism. It's all just a form of stealing. Weakening of the dollar, the government misuse tax money, but how about the corporations? However, whenever and I'm glad you brought that up, Brum, about the um. I'm glad you brought up the corporations, and this is another issue that people are overlooking, is that corporations are now switching to AI. A lot of these people are losing jobs, and while Trump is swearing that the economy is at a 4% unemployment rate, I think he's lying. In fact, I know he's lying, because if you drive around in most of these places, we're understaffed. I mean, even the government jobs are understaffed. Even where I work is understaffed. They're begging. They ask us all the time, do you know anybody who needs a job? And it's just, the thing is it's just, there. It seems like to me, you can increase the dollar to whatever you want. Like, let's say $50 minimum wage. If you look at the bigger picture, it looks like we're on the brink of collapse, like our society as a whole. And I don't mean to sound like negative Nancy. I want people to make more money. I'm looking at the bigger picture. I think the dollar's just going to collapse anyway. So I guess to me, like even at my job, let's say they go, okay, you guys are getting a $4 raise. Okay, so that's going to put me at $28 an hour, right? And I think, okay, that's great. I'm game, cool, sign me up. But then when I look at the way this country's headed to, I look at the $4 increase as just it's just a little distraction that's heading to a bigger problem in years to come. Like I just think it's gonna collapse anyway, so it's not really gonna matter what I'm making. Does that make sense? We're about to run out of Social Security. I don't even know if I'm gonna have a Social Security when I retire, because the government's just wasteful spending, increasing the debt ceiling, and just inflated our economy and just misusing our money right in front of our faces. And not to mention they're stealing money with kickbacks and bribes and donations from large corporations that helps them in their campaign to get them votes. That's why I didn't even vote in the last election. I just saw it as pointless. This is a waste of time. This society's cooked. It is fucking cooked. What I'm implying is that it doesn't matter if you're working for the government or you're working in the private sector. We're cooked. When the dollar collapses, it doesn't matter what your job is. We are fucking cooked. It don't matter what you work for. If you're working for a dollar, it is just a matter of time before it collapses. And currently, that's the only thing in our current system what we have. What are your thoughts about gold and silver? I think eventually it's going to collapse. If you look at China, for example, they've been buying up all the gold. Even though United States owns most of it, but China's been investing in a lot of gold. It's going to end up like crypto, where eventually it's going to rise so much and then it's just going to collapse. That's what I think is going to end up happening to crypto, and it's going to happen to gold. It's just a matter of time. We got a housing crisis bubble. We got a credit card bubble. There's more debt being occurred in credit cards than anything. This country owes high interest rates to China. Um, we already across, I think, $40 trillion in debt. This is just madness. Our politicians are corrupt. You can't trust either one of them, rather it's left or right. You can't trust them. There's no term limits. This is just madness. This is insane. Just madness, insanity. Unfunded pension liabilities kick in. Only then will the masses wake up. Private sectors continue to squeeze the workers. We're about to lose all of our jobs anyway. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. I don't know what Rob just sent in, but I agree with the last comment by Bro from Brum. On top of that, Stephen, everyone is angry and hateful at each other. Yeah, and I think so. Well, it's gonna be hard for me, Rob, to look at it, because if I do, I'm on a stream on my phone, and therefore it's going to affect my live stream. So if it was on my computer, it'd be different. I could open up another link tab and do that, but it's a little harder for my phone. Maybe if you kind of weigh in, you don't have to say what it's all about, but just give sort of a short, brief, description, the comments, what it's about. Well, I'm on my phone right now. I can get on my laptop. I'm just too lazy to get up to look at it. But look, I'm going to be honest with you, man. Whether you're working in the government sector, the private sector, if you're working for a dollar, I'm really concerned about if inflation continues to go up. We're already in hyperinflation. I've told people this multiple times. We're in hyperinflation. And if it continues to go up, you're looking at a total economical collapse on the making. That's why like if they were to tell us this year, hey, we're fighting to give you a raise, you're going to have most of these people clapping. They're like, yeah, we deserve a $2 raise. And then I'm looking at it like, man, this is just a distraction from what's about to happen. That's why I don't really care what the raise is anymore, because it just doesn't matter. Like, they could tell me you're making $10 more. I'm just going to be like, okay, because I already see it collapsing. So what's the positive side of it? Like, if you already see the light at the end of the tunnel and you already know the dollar's going to collapse and inflation is going to continue to go up, and you see the misuse of our tax dollars, and you see that these politicians are corrupt, and that the election is just a complete shit show, when you look at that, you don't really see the point in telling me I'm getting a raise when I already know the dollar's going to be worthless anyway, if it isn't already. That it's just going to collapse. So what's there to look forward to? Like, if you're telling me by 2030 it's going to be done, Social Security is going to be out, our taxes are going to continue to go up, big corporations are buying massive amounts of property, at not to mention all the tax breaks that Trump's given them. I mean, it's just, to me, this just doesn't make any sense. It's just, that's why I say these wage hikes, when you talk about wage hikes and gender wars and all this crap, it's just a distraction from the talks we need to be having. Total amount spent by Congress and the revenue received by Congress has been going down, which means the taxpayer is being taxed less and more is being spent and reduce inflation. Don't doubt someone with much less on their time. We are taxed by the interest on creation, taxed by devaluation, taxed by inflation, and then the state, local sales tax, etc. I think, for example, we should get rid of property tax. There's been a couple of politicians who've been advocating for this, and I think that it's a great idea. We need to abolish property taxes. I think property taxes is just a way to steal your property. If something bad was to happen to you, the government can then seize your, or the county you live in can then seize the property if you go 3-4 years without paying. And then, not to mention, if corporations buy up land next to you and they're opening up condos, duplexes, high-rise and apartment buildings, like I'm seeing right now in some parts of Houston, that means it raises the property taxes amongst everybody in that subdivision, and it forces people who are retired to sell the property because they can't keep up with the maintenance costs or pay the property tax because they're on limited fixed income from Social Security. They're most likely to sell the property, right? And who's going to buy it? The same person that put the apartment complex there, which is most likely a corporation, like BlackRock, most likely. And they'll just buy up the property. That's how they're swallowing up subdivisions, buying massive amounts of land. That's why, like, when you drive everywhere, you see all these new developing neighborhoods. Those are corporations that are doing that. That's what they're doing. It's a big question. What is the game here? We need to head back and Call of Overlords. Like I said, I think that what we need to do is we have tax reform. You can impose a flat tax of, I would say, 8%. I think that's fair. And the 8% would cover your government services cost. So if your dollar is being taxed over and over and over by so much, then what basically is saying is that your dollar doesn't mean anything. That you're basically working a certain part of the year for your taxes to go right to being misused anyway. Like funding wars and setting up stupid projects with kickbacks that go back to your politicians. It was crazy. I was watching the news the other day. And I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but there was a guy that was going to bogeys, and I would see him in there all the time. It was he used to wear NFL. I think he was a big Kansas City Chiefs fan because I would see him with the coat and everything. I didn't think nothing of it. So I asked him one day. I said, "Man, so we sparked up a conversation," and I said, "So what do you do for a living?" He's like, "Oh, I work for the school district, like HISD." And I said, "Oh, okay. So what do you do?" "I'm a superintendent." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." I'm like, "That's what's up, man." I didn't think nothing of it, but I'm like, "Okay, working, man. I can't, knock a person who's, working." And all of a sudden, I see on the news that 3 people got arrested for basically taking kickbacks, and he was one of them. And what happened was, they would hire these contractors to do remodeling work on the schools, to remodel the schools and stuff. And so what he was doing is he would have a list of, the contractors that were on the list that you had to choose from, because the city of Houston would pick out what contractors were contracted in order to do the work, and then you just kind of had to go through your homework to pick the best suitable ones you thought would do the job that you needed to get done, right? And usually it's referrals, like, "Hey, pick this guy, he's pretty good, he's done work on my house, blah, blah, blah. Pick this guy." So what ended up happening was, what he would do is he would pick maybe the same, 2 contractors and say, "Hey, I'll pick you to do these jobs, but I want money, but I want a kickback." So he would do the job and then write, 10,000 on top for himself, or the contractor would. So then he would get those kickbacks. So not only was he getting paid the salary, which he would make at 6 figures, but he would make another side chunk of people's tax dollars on kickbacks from that work that was being done on the school. And I said, and just imagine, they only caught 3 of them. So just imagine, A, how long was this going on for? And B, who else is involved? And C, where else is this happening? It makes you wonder how much of this corruption is going on. And the answer is a lot of it. So if that is at your city level, just imagine at the state and at your federal level of this happening. You're not going to be happy to hear about your tax dollars going to kickbacks like this. That's why it's, like I said, if you look at, for example, a lot of these taxes that we're getting taxed on, it's ridiculous. You know, that's why I said we need to get rid of the property taxes. That way it protects your home and it gives you the opportunity to protect your house from ever being taken by a corporation. Regardless of them putting a mansion next to your house, them putting an apartment complex next to your house, or a high-rise condo, whatever the case is. Like I see a lot of this going on in downtown Houston in a lot of these older neighborhoods. That's how they're flooding people out of their neighborhoods and swallowing up the subdivisions. That's what basically real estate is right now. It's just a cesspool of large corporations taking over. And I call for them to put a limit as to how many units and condos that these corporations can buy and change the laws on the LLCs to prevent them from having multiple LLCs to where they can own a lot of property at almost a tax-free rate. I mean, you can even go to taxing them on taxing a capital gains tax. You can do that too, and try to put a stop to this because everything is becoming corporatized and industrialized. If you notice that, like corporatized, that ain't good. So they're basically just going to own all the property, and then they're going to take all their competitors out, and then they're just going to raise the wages or raise the mortgages or the rent, and they know they have the leverage because they own up most of the property anyway. So wherever you go, it's most likely to be owned by the same corporation. You're kind of stuck. This is not good. There you go. Ghost Machines pretty much said it. But I want him to have a conversation. At least he's having a conversation. I agree. Yeah, like and sub, at least willing to have civilized debate. Yeah, I mean, Saudi Arabia has no income or property tax because it's entirely funded by a government program with Saudi, which is primary government source for income, which is we buy oil from. Monitor on your life and healthy. I don't care. I hate politics. Okay, that's good to know. Keep speaking the truth. Let's see. What else? Property tax or income tax. Yeah, I agree with that. I hate hearing from Mount politics. Yeah, but I think what good to go here for you again. Take it easy, bro. You too, bro. It's good. It's good hearing from you too, man. I think we need term limits. And again, I think that a lot of this corruption stems to the fact that you got a lot of these politicians who just simply won't go away. And it's really about power. I don't even think it's about money. I think it's just they enjoy the power that they have because how are they going to leave when they rig the elections? And I'm talking about on both sides, where they rig the elections, they rig the state and city elections. Both sides do it. And if you got a monopoly where one politician kind of wins the same, like he's a senator every time, that's corruption. That's corruption because that just doesn't make any sense how the same person could get revoted in 10, 15 times in a 50-year span. That doesn't make any sense. And it happens on both sides. This isn't just a one-sided argument. Like I think Mitch McConnell for his state, I think he rigs the elections there. He wins every time, and he wins in a landslide every time. Every time. And so, like, when you look at those kind of things, you have to question and say, this doesn't add up. How is it you keep winning the elections every time you go up? And not only do you win, but you win by a massive amount of votes. I highly doubt that you're that favorable in your own state and for this long. I know, David, Ian, I agree. I think it's going on both sides. That's what I was just saying. It's going on, and that's why we need term limits for the Senate, the House, and Congress. We need term limits, man. And also, politicians are not allowed to receive donations from corporations. We need to fix that too. There is a long, massive rehaul of corruption we need to look at and do some sort of reform. And I think tax reform in this country is definitely one thing that we need to look at. A tax reform. Because if I'm paying taxes and you're misusing the money, and then you're printing up the money, and then you're getting kickbacks, it's just you're double and triple dipping the system in terms of your corruption. And then the fact you don't have term limits just even makes it worse. It's like you're a kid at a fucking candy store. You know, you leave the printers running, so you're telling me the money that I'm working for means nothing. You get kickbacks for my tax dollars, which is illegal. Insider trading, illegal. You see what I'm saying? So that's why when you hear about these tax hikes, and you know, it's automatically going to divide people up. You're going to have people from both sides are saying this is a good move, higher wages, better life, blah blah blah. And if you want to go by mathematical, that's fine. You'll make an extra $1,000 a month. Cool. But and then you have the other side that's arguing, saying, well, if you increase that, they're just going to either decrease hours, they're going to close up shops, and then they're just going to be promoting AI. The way that I look at it on the outside in is both sides are correct, but they're incorrect at the same time. Yes, you're going to receive more money. Yes, they're going to start having to get rid of people or cut hours. So both sides have an argument. But at the end of the day, the wage hikes means nothing when the economy is going to collapse anyway. If you see the light at the end of the tunnel and you're aware that the dollar will collapse, like let's say if they were to tell you, hey, look, by 2030 we're going to have digital currency and the dollar won't matter. Would you really give a shit about working for the next 4 years? Fuck no. You would work as less hours as you could because you'd be like, fuck it, what's the fucking point? But of course they're not going to tell you that because, you know, then it would start mass panic. So they're just going to say, okay, well, you know, the dollar's about to collapse. We already see it happening. We need to switch to another form of currency. Okay, digital currency. Digital currency is going to end up being probably the new source of income that's going to happen. I think it's going to happen pretty soon. I mean, think about it. They already stopped printing up the penny. So, I mean, it's just to me, that's just telling me that's where they're headed to. Is this, I mean, if you look at most of these places you go to downtown, for example, do you guys ever notice that they don't take cash anymore? Like they only take credit card or debit. They don't even want to touch cash anymore. I walk into places with money in my hand and they literally look at me like I'm stuck on stupid. And they're like, you have to have a credit card. I'm like, why? And they go, because we don't accept cash anymore. I'm like, oh, so you're telling me that cash doesn't mean anything? Yep, that's what we're telling you. Cash ain't shit. So these businesses are already looking at cash like it don't mean nothing. They're basically telling you the $100, even if you come with the correct change, they're telling you, we don't want your cash. So if businesses are turning people down from their cash, like I remember, I went into this one place and they let me pay cash even though I only take credit. And one girl looked at me and she said, I haven't seen like an actual dollar bill in like 5 years. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, because everybody pays with card now. So now it's becoming to the point to where your dollar is just obsolete. You see what I'm saying? And so that's why when people are saying, hey, look, New York's raising it to $30 an hour. And of course, people are divided on this. Some agree with it, some don't. To me personally, I look at it as a lose-lose because it's just the dollar's collapsed anyway. So why does it matter what my wage is anymore? Like $50, $60. Oh, and by the way, there's people where I work at that make $40, $56 an hour and they're still struggling. And I'm at 25. So I'm just telling you that the $30 on paper sounds like it's great, but in the long run of things, a long scale, when you look at the cost of living's increase, $30 ain't shit. I'm telling you, it ain't shit, man. Even if let's say they didn't fire anybody and they gave you the 40 hours with the cost of living constantly going up, your taxes are increased, it doesn't feel like anything. It still feels like it sucks. You couldn't pay me to live in New York or Cali. Sorry I'm late for the sermon. What's today's subject? It all started in 1914, beginning with the Western Bank and the Central Bank. Wow, somebody gets it. Bingo, you're on point. Thanks, man. Thanks for the shout out. Well, thank you, David, for commenting. He said both do it. Yeah, exactly. Both Democrats and Republicans do it. And that's why you guys got to be very careful. Look, listen, regardless of what you think of Trump, some like him, some don't. There's things about him that I like and some things I don't. Really, most more things that I don't than I do. It's pros and cons to every president. There's some things you're going to like, some things you're not going to like. Country's divided anyway. You know, to me, I look at more of the actions of what our politicians do rather than who likes who. And I think it's, you know what I'm saying? People get caught up into the persona and of the character and the charisma that these presidents bring. Like Obama's the hype man, Donald Trump's the strong arm troll, you know, and Joe Biden's the incompetent moron who says weird shit. And then, you know, people kind of get, he's kind of like the laughing, you know, people laughing at him, they think he's a clown. And it's just, it's sort of like everyone has their own persona. And, you know, we tend to judge people based on their personality. I look at it more by their actions of how they perform in the office, what legislation have they signed, how much has the deficit increased. I look at the economical factor more and more than rather, you know, because I feel like the person who, I feel like if they're going to be dancing on stage, I want to see the results of it more rather than their performance on stage. I want to see the results as to how the crowd has moved. I don't really care if Donald Trump's a strong arm man and, you know, he's like, you better obey or else in China. And, you know, people like the little arm gestures and cool. I don't care about none of that. I just care about the effects of legislation he either signs or doesn't sign and what economical decisions, what decisions does he make while he's in chief and what are the results of such. And that's how I grade it based on that. I try to not be like, well, who's your favorite character in Mortal Kombat? I try to look at it like, which one gives me the best odds? You know, and I kind of look at it from that point of view. It you know, because we live in a society where everything is based on what do they call it? The knee jerk reaction, or we get caught in the moment on the you know, the 3-second TikTok clips, and oh, Trump said this and it's really funny, and Joe Biden did this, he fell down the steps and it's, oh my God, it's hilarious. You know, I try to look past all that and I just try to look at what they do in office. And there's some things I like, some things I don't. We need to start holding these politicians accountable. Term limits is easily. It's all about common sense governance. Exactly. Good, Rolling Stones. Thank you, sir. What gets me is everyone thinks Trump is working class, but he's definitely managerial class. I'm retired NYPD officer, tactics instructor. Great to hear your truth. Oh man, I appreciate it, man. I'm currently in. Well, I'm not a cop. I'm a correction officer, but I'm just, you know, again, giving my opinion as to where I think this country's headed to. That's why, like, I don't really care about the wage hikes because, to me personally, I think it's a distraction from term limits and from telling these politicians they should be put on military tribunals for crimes against humanity, war crimes, and treason. That's the distraction. Epstein list, that's just another issue in itself. I don't think anybody's going to get arrested or convicted. I wouldn't shock me, so there's no reason for me to even get mad. Will the public be mad? Yes. Well, I think it's wrong. Yes. But I just know that, or I believe, we're not going to see any convictions by it. And you saw how the Clintons were the other day when they put them on the stand. You saw Hillary, that evil witch, was on there. You saw how she was. You saw how she behaved. You saw how she stormed out of there. She has the face of the Joker and she's evil. Bill Clinton, you saw how weird he was, and he was licking his hands and licking the point in the photos and like, ooh, you know, ooh, I remember that date. Ooh, you know, and were those girls underage? Well, oh, not to my knowledge. Fuck you, you know. And then he's ripping the paper out of the lawyer's hands, and she's trying to rip the paper back, and it was just a complete shit show. But it reminds you constantly of how this continues to go on in Capitol Hill. And that's why I just wonder, what is the point of having these politicians finger pointing at each other for the clown show for us to watch? So it could just further divide us, when I know for a fact, if I was to get on the stand, I would say, hey, why don't we have term limits on the next elections and just settle this down the middle? There's no such thing as a career politician. There's no such thing as receiving large donations from corporations, whether you're on the left or the right, or get receiving large kickbacks or whatever, we're going to put a stop to all this shit. And I guarantee you that conversation in that room is going to change, and they're going to say, okay, you need to leave. Your time is up. That's what they're going to do to me. If I was to ask those questions, all of a sudden it takes from the distraction to the main topic of the conversation. And oh, and by the way, we need tax reform. I guarantee you they're going to throw me out of the room. Before I even get to that, they're going to say, that's not important. Your time is up. You're supposed, and then you know when the guys are always getting dragged out of there, like they'll have like 4 or 5 guys dragging you by your feet, and you're kicking and screaming like a little perpetuant child. That's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do. You're going to just scream and stuff and throw your shoe like that one guy did at George Bush, which I was hoping he was going to hit George Bush in the forehead with his shoe. It's not about left or right anymore. It's a ridiculous clown show. And look, I'm going to just hit newsflash. I am a conservative. I usually do vote right. But Trump really does concern me of rather he really is a conservative or he really is a Democratic plant. And I'm just being honest with you. I have my suspicions about him. And this has been going on for years. And I truly believe that he acts more as a Democrat than he does as a Republican. And I know that's going to sting some people, but to me, he's more of a moderate Democrat that has just gone far, far left now. The deficit's increased. He's gone to Congress at least on 3 different occasions, raising debt ceiling. He hasn't fixed the issue of taxes. We've already bombed 8 different countries. And not to mention the fact that gas prices are about to go off. He's completely oblivious to the issues here in this country. He doesn't care about 90% of his voter fan base. He cares majority for multi-billionaires that help his agenda, the people that surround him, and large corporations that are receiving a vastly amount of tax hikes. The other day he was talking and he said, hey, he said something about, we need to put a limit as to how many condos and units that these corporations could buy because they're driving up the cost of the housing market, which is what I've been saying for years. He finally said it. I'm like, well, at least you can finally admit it. But then he turns around and says, well, we really can't penalize them. He just completely does a 360 the next day. And it's like, well, we really just can't penalize them, can we? Because they, so what? They're buying up all the property and they're not receiving any interest from the banks and no money down and making money off the cash flow and raising the cost. Yeah, so what if they're doing it? Like, he completely did a 360 because I forgot Trump's got a lot of donors from fucking corporations as well as Joe Biden. So he gets a lot of kickbacks, which is hence why he got the $3 billion that he recently made. But this country's broke, but this fucker made $3 billion in 1 year. Make it make sense. It doesn't make sense. He says, well, I'm going to drain the swamp. Well, it looks like you're part of the swamp. You're so different. I could go on all night, but this right here is a complete disaster. Yeah, it's a complete disaster. I hate to say this about Joe Biden, but he actually acts more of a conservative than Trump does. And I'm not saying I'm the biggest fan of him, but he actually acts more conservative. I think they got their T's miscrossed or something. I think they're incoherent or something. I think a little bit of that dementia's kicking in. But they might need to remind themselves what their party actually stands for and where they need to fall in place. I think they tend to fall off the scale a little bit. Trump is behaving more as a Democrat. I hate to say that. I know you guys don't want to hear that, but if you look at the direction the country's going, it looks like the hell he's fucking far leftist than anything. Jesus Christ. Look at the situation now. Look who he's been helping and aiding this whole time. I'm not even going to say the name. I'll let you fill in the blank. This motherfucker's far left. There ain't nothing conservative about this motherfucker, man. I'm just saying. I'm just bringing it to the attention. Jesus, Lord have mercy. Oh. Trump has basically surpassed Obama's debt. It's just insanity. I mean, this is crazy, man. I don't even know what else to say. You lost me now. Oh shit, I lost someone. BlackRock told them to sit down. To IA's conservative, they want unlimited power and they want tantrums when someone challenges them. Yeah, I agree. Yep. We all know they're corrupt and dirty. I've seen high profile arrests. Cheers to that. Well, thank you. Bet you got some good stories, David. Hillary was very aggressive and smug. Yeah. And a sea of bullshit. Yeah, I agree with you, David Ian. I'm not holding my breath for accountability. Nah, man, it's not. Rolling Stone said you lost me now. Look, man, I'm just telling you that Trump behaves more as a Democrat than a Republican. If you look at legislation, if you look at the deficit, you look at the first stimulus check, he signed the first stimulus check, Biden signed the second two. It was Trump's idea to shut the country down in the first place. And that was when I was high on him at the time. I was high on revoting for. I was like, yeah. And he was the one that agreed to Democrats, folded to them and said, yep, the country shuts down. Yep, we're going to print the COVID check for first stimulus. Yep, we're going to go ahead and put that unemployment tax raise. So if you're on unemployment, you're going to be getting $15,000 a month. I told everybody back then when I was at Walmart, working at Walmart time, I said this is going to be very bad. That was a big mistake that Trump made. Big mistake. What do you mean it's extra money? I said, bro, the banks are going to hit us for interest rates. They're going to want that money back. They're going to have to raise the interest rates, which is going to come on what? Credit cards, whatever we use. And not to mention tax increase to have to pay that money back. That money wasn't free. And I knew that shit wasn't free. I just said, fuck it, I don't want your damn stimulus check. Because I already know that I already knew that it was going to fuck us. And I'm not saying Biden didn't come in and did what he did. I'm not arguing that. He signed the next two stimuluses. That was a bad move too. But Trump initially signed the first one. So when people say, well, this is Joe Biden's economy, I'm like, no, actually, technically, it's more of George Bush's economy. If you look at the way that Trump ran the economy, and this is dating towards 2016, yes, the taxes were low at the time. Yes, the appoint of Supreme Court attorneys, that was a good move. Taxes were low. Cost of living was low. His first 2 years in office was great. After that, it's been a complete shamble. It's been a complete shamble. He kept most of Obama's policies. He kept most of Obama's laws. He didn't challenge 5181. He didn't challenge 5736. No, he didn't do none of that. He didn't repeal Obama's laws. He kept them in there. Because I knew something that wasn't adding up there. Wait a minute. So you're talking about censorship bills. Why you didn't repeal them? You had the opportunity. Congress was vastly majority. The Senate and the House was mostly majority Republican. You had tons of opportunities to repeal Obama's laws, to take the censorship bills away, and you didn't do it. You allowed the Democrats essentially to take over the House and the Senate. You allowed it to happen, and now you're bitching about it. It's like, dude, at this point, I don't even know what to say. I think, I had a little bit of confidence. I said, if we get tax reform, we possibly could save the dollar. People would have more money. You can invest it in your mom and pop stores. But if they crash this economy and all the mom and pop stores close down and you only got corporations basically owning everything, they have the monopoly of jacking the cost up based on supply and demand because they know you have nowhere else to go. To me, that's not a free market. What you just basically did was you just crashed the market. You killed the local mom and pop businesses. You basically destroyed it. And that's what's happened. And that's why when Trump says, well, the unemployment rate's at 4%, God damn it. Have you driven around and look at most of these places? They're understaffed. They're on the brink of collapse. And you're telling me that you're at a 4% unemployment rate. I find that very hard to believe, sir. I find that very hard to believe. So what you're telling me and what I'm seeing are two different things. I just think that these presidents and these politicians just love to hear themselves talk while they're secretly just crashing the economy. What I think personally what's going on, and this is just my personal opinion, I think that we live in a nation of stealing. You look at capitalism, you look at socialism, you look at communism, you look at all these different forms of how money is allocated, where the flow of the money is. You look at no matter what profession you're in, we just live in a nation of stealing. If you think about it essentially, the products are not as good anymore. Even the newer products, your electronics, most of them are faulty. They're always breaking down. The houses, the new houses they're making, they're either built in a shitty area, like alongside some big creek area that's waiting for some massive hurricane to take it off, or they just got, or they're using raw materials. God knows where they're coming from, and from third party vendors. And a lot of the materials are cheaply made. They're not the same materials that we were getting in the early 2000s and the 90s and the 80s when houses were booming and it was safe to know when you bought a home that you weren't going to have to worry about any maintenance costs for the next 10 years or so. Now, there's people that are buying new homes within 6 months are already having to replace sheetrock or having to even level houses or even having to do a lot of remodeling work because the materials that were used to build a house were just cheaply made. So now you even have to question the newer homes you're buying now. This is a mess. It's a big mess. I haven't talked to him in a while. It's been a minute, man. Like I said, his people's got a house over here in the Lakes of Brightwater. They got another house on the north side. You know, I don't really talk to any of these politicians anymore. I mean, I used to DM Ted Cruz on Instagram. I mean, he's all right. He's an okay guy, but you know, it's just I don't know, man. He's you know, a lot of these guys just like to hear themselves talk. I'm just done with that shit, man. I'm all about results now. I don't care about the TikTok or the Instagram, you know, reelums you guys like to make, and y'all like to go back and forth. How about let's just get together with some sort of tax reform plan and term limits, and let's just start from there. Let's just narrow it down to two small things, get the conversation rolling, get people involved in the conversation, and get some sort of resolution towards term limits and towards tax reform in this country. And let's start away by doing away with property tax. If you want to talk about, and this is the opinion I have right here. I think you guys might like this. If I was to run for president, like for example, and they were to say, "Hey, Mr. Rose, what would you do in your first day in office as you were president?" Right? And a lot of these guys, I watch them, and they're like, "We know." They'll say that they're going to present this bill and this and that, and I'm just like, you know, I'm watching them, but it doesn't really sound any catchy. So you want something that's going to set the tone right off the bat, right? So you want to know within the first 24 hours, what are you going to do when you're in office, right? I feel that's the most important part of the time because then there's going to be months and months where you're just going to kind of mellow out. The high is going to come down. So I figure, why don't you set the tone right off the bat? So the first day I'm in office, I'm abolishing property taxes. I would present a bill, present it to Congress, and have to pass the House and the Senate. And I would say that we need to do away with property taxes right off the bat. And I would name the bill Set the Tone, right? So the Set the Tone bill would be written, and it would probably take a week. But the first day I would make the announcement. This is what I plan on doing when and if I'm voted in office. This is what I would do. And then I would say I'm abolishing property taxes. There is no ifs, ands, or discussion about it. This is the first thing I'm doing. And so once we get that bill signed, and I sign it with my John Hancock signature, you don't have to ever worry about losing your home to corporations or anything. We can go ahead and get away from the property tax. And I mean, Shell, just eliminating the state income tax would probably save the average American $600 a month. Now imagine then you take away the property taxes. Some people I know are paying almost $10,000 a year in property taxes, and the house is paid off. Do you know how much the houses are in California for property taxes? I was looking on the appraisal district, and in certain parts of California, they wanted $50,000 a year for just the property tax. That is insane. That is insane. So let's just go ahead and do away with the property tax. To me, that would set the tone, and it would help improve your life instantly by no property taxes, knowing that you don't have to sit here and worry about an extra bill that is bullshit anyway. Let's just get rid of the property tax. There's no reason you should be ass raping me for $50,000 for a piece of property that I already own. In the state of California, for example, I don't live in California. I live in Texas. Hell, there's people out here that pay 10,000 a year in property tax. I can look on the appraisal district right now and see houses up for auction. If you just pay the taxes, you own the house. And it's, let's say, 8,000 in taxes, in back taxes you didn't pay, and somebody buys it. Imagine all the work, all the hard sweat, all the years of owning a home, paying it off, saying, man, I own this house, I'm great, I'm good. And then all of a sudden, boop, it gets swooped out because something might have happened. Death in the family, you might have lost your job, and anything can happen. And next thing you know, you're back on your property taxes by X amount of time, or you're paying bills and you may not have enough to afford that $10,000 a year property tax. And therefore you're in threat of what? Losing the house. Why should you lose the house? You already own it. So therefore property taxes is another way of saying you don't own that property. You don't own that house. That ain't yours. Yes, your name's on the deed. Yes, your name is on the deed of the house, but you don't own it. Because if I can take it from you, then how do you own it? You know, it'd be different if you were selling the house and you sold it. You know, but if the government can sit there and say, we can take your house if you don't make payments to us in 3 years, motherfucker, I don't feel like I own the house. It really feels like it's your house. I'm just currently in here with the name on it. Anyways, back to what I was saying. What was I going to say? So yeah, eliminate property taxes. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. So you get rid of the property taxes. That would definitely take the tension off of Americans. Imagine at the end of the year when it's tax season and the property tax bill comes in around what, November, December, and it's like, oh, I owe 10 grand, or you know, you owe 20,000, and that's insanity. We need to get rid of that property tax bill. And if I were president, I definitely would make that sure that happens on a federal level. Now, Governor Abbott, who just got reelected, says he's going to get rid of property taxes. He swears he's going to do it. And that was his main reelection bid, is we're going to get rid of property taxes. Whether that happens or not, we'll see in November when it's time for him to get reelected. We'll see. We'll see what happens. You know, I think Governor of Florida, what's his name, DeSantis, like, well, I'm going to get rid of property taxes. Has he? I don't know if he has done it or not. Crispy Cruiser probably may know more about that than I do. So if he wants to feel free to comment, let me know if he got rid of it, or if you know any updates to that, because I remember he was a big advocate on abolishing property taxes in Florida. So whether he's done that or not, I don't know. Well, you know, maybe if he wants to comment and kind of let me know if that's happened or not. But as of right now, I'm not going to bash him because I don't know if he did it or not, or he plans on doing it. Last time I checked, it would costed $1 million to even run in presidential race, aka their own from the jump. Yeah, we're going to need term limits. And these presidents should not be receiving large donations from corporations. I agree with that, Marvin says. Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, if the next election comes, because you know you got your midterm elections are coming up, I'm just not going to participate in it. But let's say when we have the elections for the, 2028, so that's right around the corner, actually. It's in 2 years. God, that's going to go by so fucking fast. When it does, you know, let me know. If there's any candidate that's going to abolish property taxes on the federal level and it's going to push for tax reform and term limits. Whatever president, doesn't matter if you're left or right, if they push for that, I might just go ahead and vote for them. If they can push for that and say this is what our targets are, this is what we're aiming for, and this is what essentially I want, I might go ahead and just say, you know what? I might have to vote for you. I might have to just go ahead and cast that iron in there and get that vote. Because personally, until I see those things, it's going to be really hard for me to say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and vote. Nah, I think I'm just going to sit this one out. You know, I might have to sit the 2028 election out, just like I did 2024. I might have to sit this one out. I might just have to go ahead. Marvin said, I think that Republicans and Democrats are secretly working together. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Nothing surprises me at this point. Would it surprise you guys if that happened? No, I'm curious. Would it surprise any of you that are watching right now? Any of you? If these guys were all working together? It wouldn't surprise me at all if they were telling me this shit. Oh, you know, we're not working together. We hate them and they hate us. And it's like, yeah, okay. I don't believe you. That's what I'm saying. I don't want to go by these. You know, I don't want to go by the argument that New York's raising the wages as if it's some sort of it's just a bullshit distraction. It's like if Texas was to say, hey, we're gonna raise the wages to 30, I'm like, all right, man. I mean, I really don't care at this point. Sure, it'll be an extra zero on my check, like an extra couple of $100, but at the end of the day, I already know what's gonna happen. It just doesn't make any sense for me to even, you know, the war in Iran's costing the American taxpayer $830 million a day. Yep, and we've been 11 days there. You know how much money that is? Do the math. 830. Let's just say that's almost $1 billion, right? We'll just do, let's just say $11 billion, right? Subtract 130 times 11, 1.3 billion times 11, or no, 1.70 million times 11. So it's basically like 11 million under $11 billion. Like $10.8 billion this war is costing us. And that's also not to mention how much longer this continues. And then gas prices go up. And everyone said, well, you know, the gas prices are only going to go up by a couple bucks. And I'm like, yeah. And then everything else around the room goes up because in order to transport your food and your products, services, that's going to go up. You guys like using Uber? You guys like using delivery? Oh, we'll be expecting that to go up because now they got to pay for all that. Your policies would go against the donor class agendas. Yeah, you're right. The last time I checked, it costed $1 million. Yep. One world government doesn't mean they can't stage. Yeah, absolutely. Marvin said, I used to love it when you and Polston used to do videos together. Yes, you guys trolled a lot, but then you also told the truth on a lot of things. Would you guys ever consider doing a collab again? Oh, I would love to. But, you know, the problem is Prodigal Hills, his schedule doesn't jot with mine. And so I would have to see, okay, what are his days off and what are mine? And I think he works the morning shift and I think I work overnights. So when he goes to work, I'm sleeping. And then by the time he gets home, you know, he's kind of up for the rest of the day till he goes to bed at night. But then I'm up having to prepare to go to work the next night. So the problem is our schedules don't jot. You know, I've been doing overnight for about 2 years now. Like May will be 2 years, and you know, there are pros and cons to working overnight. You know, it's mostly downtime. It's a lot easier, less traffic. But the only problem is when you work overnight, it's the sleep schedule. It's the hardest. And anybody who's worked overnight, they know what I'm talking about. It's extremely difficult to get a good sleep. Like if you're lucky, 6 hours would be adequate. But let's say you're coming in early the next day, then you're kind of stuck on your sleep schedule and it can get very difficult. Very difficult. Like sometimes I may only get 4 hours of sleep, 3 hours of sleep. Like dead ass. Like there are times I've only had an hour and a half of sleep because I had to come in early. I would work, let's say I'd work a 12-hour shift and then I would backdoor and I would work a 16. Hold on, Josh. I'll look at it in a minute because I'm on live. I'll get with you in a minute. Send them my Facebook. All right. Anyways, my bad on that, guys. But yeah, it's there's pros and cons to working every shift. But yeah, the night shift is just when it hits 4 a.m., your body's fighting to stay up. Those last 2 hours can be real grueling. If you guys ever worked the night shift, like you know what it's like. But anyways, what else was I gonna say? But yeah, again, the wage hikes, it ain't gonna matter. Hell, you could raise it to $60 an hour. I don't even think it matters anymore. I was talking to this nurse at Bogey's about maybe 6 months ago. She's one of the regulars, so I say hi to her. She'll have a drink. I'm really up there for the food and the entertainment, so I watch like a Rockets game or something. Next thing you know, she goes, we got into getting to know each other. It's on the friendship level, nothing too serious. And then she said she was a head nurse, I think at Herman Memorial. And I said, that's pretty cool, man. I said, so you probably make good pay. She said, yeah, I make about 120,000 a year. And I was like, and I said, damn, that's pretty good money. And she's like, yeah, but remember taxes, cost of living. And she said, it doesn't really feel like I make anything. After she pays taxes, she probably pays at least probably 25 to 30 in taxes. I could only imagine. And then not to mention the cost of living has gone up. So you really don't feel like you're making anything, even though you're making more. So you think by an increase, that means, man, holy shit, I could use the extra 600. I could use the extra $800. Like, you think it's like the quick answer to the problems that are occurring, but then you realize once you do make that kind of money, even in the case that you make the extra 800 or 900 a week and you're making extra 3,600 a month and you're like, man, that's really going to help me out. I mean, yeah, I could pay some extra bills. Don't get me wrong. It could pay off some debt you owe. Maybe you have credit card debt. Maybe you have, like other forms of debt that you owe. Maybe you still got to pay your car off. Maybe you still need to pay off your property, whatever. Hey, you can save it for property taxes. I'm not saying it doesn't help. But I'm just saying, if you look at the bigger picture, you look at the long haul, you look at the long stretch of things, you look at the fact that the prices have gone up for everything. Gasoline costs, food costs, medicine costs, retirement costs, cost if you have to buy your children anything. If you owe on a house, you own property, and you're looking up taxes continuing to go up. Even if you don't pay property taxes, let's say you don't pay much in your taxes, right? Because let's say you learn the loopholes to the laws, and yeah, sure, you're not paying a lot in taxes, but let's just say for shits and giggles, you still have to pay the higher cost for a living, house maintenance cost. You're not going to be able to escape that. You're not going to be able to escape if your house needs a new roof, if you need leveling. The material cost has gone into that, so the labor cost goes up. Therefore, you're paying more in labor costs. Imagine vehicle costs, maintenance cost on your vehicle, brake job used to cost $250, $300. Now it's $800, $900 for a brake job. You're paying more for that. So it's the point that I'm making is it's so easy to fall into that trap of I'm making more money. The answer to it is just make more money, but sometimes it's not always the answer. Let's say you were making maybe like 250,000 a year or 300,000 after taxes. Okay, maybe there's a threshold of the amount of money you could make that could say, okay, that to me sounds legit. That sounds like like I could live above the inflation. But even then, my answer would be like, it's two questions. Number one, what happens when the dollar collapses and that income you're making means nothing? And number two, with the cost of inflation, how do you know it's not going to increase and not threaten your way of life eventually? Because if everything's continuing to go up, pretty soon you would have to make more than 300,000 a year, more than 350,000 a year. At least by having a tax reform, it would help solve a lot of those issues. You eliminate property tax, so you don't have to worry about property tax increases. Now, the only question I hear about this from the naysayers is like, well, if you eliminate property tax, what about paying off policemen and firefighters? I'm like, well, you can still pay them off by the flat tax at 8%. That's way cheaper than the property tax it's currently at now. You can do a flat tax at 8%. To me, that sounds legit, right? So you do the flat tax. And then the other question is, well, how would you be able to sell your house for more money than what it's worth if you eliminate the property tax because you can't make more money on your house? Okay, well, that's why it's called upgrades. You upgrade your house, you put a room addition, you level the house, you fix the sheetrock, you do any sort of repairs, and you report that in. You can actually make justifiable costs to actually either get a tax exemption, which you can use as your tax exemption, or you can use that to justify you raising the cost of your house. Saying, hey, look, I put a lot of work into this. You got a room addition. When that house first came in, there was no room addition. There was not this. I added these extra things, so therefore, this is what I want for the house. You don't have to have a property tax bill to make the argument of why the increase for the house went up. You can simply do it by just adding extra work to your house to justify the means. You don't need a property tax bill to do that. I just don't think it's fair that if somebody moves in next door to me, tears their house down, builds a condo, a duplex, or high-rise in building, and makes it a 3-story house, and my property taxes go up because I'm his neighbor, or the subdivision property taxes go up because he happens to build one in our neighborhood, that's not fair for the rest of us. We didn't do those upgrades. He did the upgrades. So why am I paying the cost of that? Oh, it's because he put the property. I don't give a fuck what he did. That's got nothing to do with me. So it's almost like they're purposely doing this so that they could steal the houses in those subdivisions from older neighborhoods that have been there since the 40s or 50s, and they know those people are on retirement or on the verge of retirement, and they know, okay, well, they can't be able to pay the upkeep because their SSI check is not going to cover that. They're going to have to sell. Well, who's buying the homes? Corporations. It's all the pyramid scheme. It's a joke. It is a fucking joke. But you know what? If you watch these content makers here on YouTube, they won't talk about this. They'll never talk about it. They'll say, well, the problem with, the inflation is you got to raise the wages in order for it to level out. I'm like, it's not going to level out. It's still going to be a problem. There's people making more than $30 an hour and they're fucking struggling. I've been trying to say this. Raising the wages does nothing. It's not going to make it worse. It's not going to make it better. It's just a distraction from the bigger problem that's coming our way. Term limits, putting these politicians on military tribunals and trying them for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and treason. Tax reform in this country. To me, that is a conversation starter. To get these conversations going and to get some sort of answers to our questions. I'm telling you, man. AI is taking over. What are your thoughts on that? Yeah. So that's why when Trump says the unemployment rate's at 4%, are you talking about humans or robots, bro? If you go and you look, like, there's so many jobs right now that are getting rid of tens of thousands of employees. How is the unemployment rate at 4%, Trump, when you see all these people out of work? Are you just gaslighting us like we're stupid and we can't sit here and drive around and not see the effing obvious? Rose has been spitting flames all night, Rachel says on Facebook. I appreciate it. You should run for office, yeah. Maybe. Abbott better come on his word and abolish property taxes. We'll see. He says he's going to do it. November will come around. Trump said he was gonna with the what is that, July 4th bill, the big beautiful bill. I was supposed to get a lot of money back on my taxes. Come to find out, I hardly get shit. Well, the whole thing is you're supposed to not pay anything to the government in taxes. So you break even, that's not bad. But at the same time is if you worked a lot of overtime, they kind of got us a little bit on the overtime. I only made 1,800, but I made like 8,000 in overtime. But they only paid for the time you went over overtime, not the whole thing. So I made $12 an hour extra on overtime. So that's the money I got back, basically. A lot of people thought that, I made, on my income tax, it says I made 12,000. I'm supposed to get 12,000 back. I'm like, nah, you're gonna get about 3,000. Maybe a little bit under, maybe a little bit over, depending on how much you made. But yeah, you're not going to get that much back. Like maybe like 2,500. But that's what I got back. I made 1,800. I made I think almost 9,000. I made about 8,700. In overtime, I got back about 1,800 of it. A third of it. And the more you make, the more they take out. So even with that $30 increase or the wages at 30, man, they just want to take a lot out on your taxes, bro. Because you're going to be on a different income tax bracket. So you'll be making $2,400 every check at $30 an hour, right? So you multiply 40 times 30. What is 40 times 30? Zero, carry the zero over. Wait, zero at the bottom, another zero, and three. Okay, so you'd make 1,200, 2,400 on a check every 2 weeks. Let's say you get paid every 2 weeks. Let's say you get the 40. So that's 2,400. So you're making 48 a month. Well, let's just say almost 5. Now they had the taxes in. Remember that? Got to take taxes out. Oh, your insurance, the health insurance for your company. Yep, got to take the $250 out for that. So that's $500 they're taking out for the month for those 2 checks. Oh, union dues. Oh, didn't have that one in. Got to take out for union dues. Oh, and then we got to take out for taxes. You ain't getting no $4,800 a month. You get about 36. Yeah, it's smoke and mirrors. It's smoke and mirrors with that tax hike shit. And then you just get re-taxed on everything anyway once you get the damn check. Every time you go to the grocery store, you're constantly paying sales tax. Your money's just being taxed over and over and over again, over and over and over, over and over and over. It never stops. And then the government says, "Oh, well, you made more than what you're supposed to. You're supposed to pay us more." And I'm like, really? What happened to all the taxes you were taking out every month? How the fuck are you going to tell me I owe you more? Anything you motherfuckers owe me. And then they misuse our tax dollars right in our face and misspend it right in our face. And then, not to mention, they just print up the fucking money anyway which dilutes the dollar you're working for. And then they have the nerve to sit there and say, well, we're broke and don't have the money, but we seem to have the money for everything else. By the way, that we never voted on. The more you learn about politics, the more corrupt it seems like. Rachel says, yeah, it's an ugly side to the game. It's an ugly, cruel game when it comes to politics. When you look at the grand scale of things, it's stealing, basically. The lack of no term limits, they can sit there endlessly writing fake, frivolous bills where they get kickbacks on. There's no way you can sit here and tell me that these politicians are worth multiple millions of dollars. I'm talking about Nancy Pelosi, $400 million in her bank. Their net worth. It doesn't make sense. There's something not right with that picture. Go look at all these politicians. They're almost worth $1 billion. Something is not adding up. Muni, all they have to say is that's classified under national security and they get walked scot-free. Yeah. How come the IRS never audits any of the government misuse of money? You know, this is a thing I think. I think that if the agents who work for the IRS do that, they're going to get fired. Because what's going to end up happening is the politicians are going to say, you have no business getting in our business. Who do you think you are? And then they're going to report it to their bosses and say, so what is your employee doing? Auditing our this, and that. And then those IRS agents will get fired. Why do you think I'm calling for term limits so much? Term limits. Some of these, like I heard that they wanted to do a 12-year term limit. I mean, I think that's a good way to start. But I make the argument 8 is sufficient. I think there's no such thing as a career politician. I don't care what you say, because it's all corruption at the end. You have to get term limits in these next elections in 2028. And the city and state, local officials need to push more for that. And until that happens, until you get enough of these candidates that are going to fight for those things like tax reform, term limits, all these things, we're going to be cooked again in 2028. It doesn't matter who's running. It's going to be Gavin Newsom representing the Democratic Party. Yeah. And then the Republican Party is what? J.D. Vance? Which there's a little tiny rumor that Trump may run as VP. Yeah. That doesn't sound good, does it? It's good for the goose. It's not good for the gander. I don't agree with it. I don't. It's just politics is a very ugly, dark place now. You see the corruption for what it is, and just, I don't know what else to say. I appreciate you guys for watching this, man. I really do, man. 1:30 in the morning, and I was able to get, some of the things I had to say out, and I agree with the age limit. Now, what's the age limit that it should be? That's going to be a discussion in itself. But 80, 90-year-old people running the country? Yeah, I don't agree with that. We definitely need tax reform. We definitely need term limits. If I was to see a president, I would say maybe between the age of 40 and about 60. Like somewhere in that gap. That's more kind of inept with both sides. People older and people younger. But 80 and 90 years old, it's like, really? It's like, dude, y'all have been in power for like 50 fucking years. It's like that, or 35, 60. Okay, I like that. Because I think in order to be president, you got to be 35, right? So I think 35 to 60 is a fair assessment. Definitely is fair. But we don't need a president that's going to be funded by large corporations, donors, what they call it. I don't like that. That just seems shady. And not to mention, if they're donors of you, you're most likely going to have to be on the same line with them in terms of how the legislation and how does it benefit them. No, we are fighting for everyone, the people, not just some large corporation. These are not serious conversations that I think people are making us aware of, because I think it's just easy to get distracted from everything. Look, the Iran war, the Epstein files, the you know, what else? They did a distraction on. Oh, the wage hikes. All these are just distractions from the real conversations we need to have. You know, otherwise we're doomed to repeat ourselves. It's we are doomed to fail if we continue this way, and the dollar will collapse, the economy will collapse. I remember I was saying this 6, 7 years ago on a podcast one time. Me and Chem123 were talking about this, and this was back in, I think, in 2018. About 8 years ago, we were having this conversation. I know Chem123. You know, me and him were talking about this, and one of the things is he told me I think the dollar will collapse in about 10 years, and he said that 8 years ago, and that was when the economy was doing great. And I was just like, damn. Like, he was telling no lies. I remember one time my father was telling me back in 2014, a true story. We sold a job and did a foundation job, and we were talking to a guy who was buying houses, and he was trying to fix them up. And then I come to find out that a house down the street was bought by some sort of corporation, and that was kind of new because corporations were not involved in real estate the way they are now. And my dad said, well, damn, if corporations get involved in the housing market, this could be bad for all of us. He's like, man, they need to really figure out how to get corporations uninvolved, or otherwise in 10 years, it's going to be very bad. It could get worse, especially if they monopolize the market. And my dad wouldn't tell no lies, because if you look at a lot of these houses getting bought up, they're not by private investors. They're mostly some sort of equity firm, some sort of corporation. That's what's happening. Yeah, I agree. He said we don't need a what? Yeah, I mean, we don't need a president that's just been around for, it's like 80 years old. I mean, dude, it's like retire already. But I don't even really think it's about money. I think that they've stolen so much that they can just buy anything they want. I think now it's just about power, just imposing the will of power to make other people's lives miserable because they get a fucking kick out of it. It's like some sort of sick game. That's my only logical reasoning why you'd be in office for 60, 70 years. Is you just love the power. You love it because whatever legislation you pass is going to impact those others. So it's like a kick. It's like gratification. It's like a turn on to see other people down. And that's what I noticed, that even on like the social media grand scheme of things, if you look at how people behave, for the most part, what are they all about? How many cars I have? How many women I have? My life is better than yours. You're a peasant. You're a nobody. You're a brokey. You're this. You're that. Look at all this stuff I have. I have this lavish lifestyle. If you look at that, it's almost like they're behaving Like a lot of these politicians, it's just the difference is they're doing it more noticeable on social media versus politicians are what? Behind closed doors. And so when you see this, to me, the only logical explanation I can give is I think ultimately greed destroyed the inner soul of people. I'm not trying to sound like a socialist or communist. Don't come along and tell me that. For my personal opinion, I think people got too greedy. I think people were stealing. People were just obtaining large amounts of money through breaking federal law, stealing from the pot, getting large kickbacks and bribes, and doing everything behind the scenes that it just, to me, the only convincible way for people to feel like they're going to need to make money is to do what? The same thing. Everybody falls in line. Everybody join in the party because the water's. It's like imagine if your politician just jumps in the pool and says, "Hey, everybody, get in the pool. The water's warm." But when you look at the pool, there's piles of shit all in the pool. Like there's the whole pool of shit, and your politician's like, "Hey, get into the water. The water's warm." I'm not trying to jump in a water full of shit, and it seems like to me, in order to make money, you have to almost have to get your hands completely dirty. And I'm talking about, I'm not saying to be dishonest. I'm not saying to be a crook, to be a criminal, a mafia boss. But it almost seems like if you look at most of the people like in this world that obtain large amounts of money, for the most part, not everybody, but the most part, there's some sort of criminal element added to it. Dishonest, thief, bribery, stealing. Hence, why I said we live in a nation of what? Stealing. Communism, capitalism, socialism, same thing. It's all how you steal from people. And if how else is there loopholes behind it? Using the government to push a certain agenda and to be able to sway certain politicians your way so that you get kickbacks, bribes, tax breaks, this, and this. We are living almost like you know how pirates do? We're just a bunch of pirates going around stealing. I think now the cat's out of the bag and people are just have convinced themselves there's no such thing as a good quality service anymore. There's no such thing as providing a service because it's all just a facade to steal. Rather, it's the bad quality and electronics we're receiving from other places of the world. Our food quality has gone down. Service has gone down. People don't really care to work. People don't want to put in their all anymore. They just want a job with high paying, but they don't want to do anything. And then you get, inflation. You add all this stuff. It just seems like to me, capitalism is not what it used to be. It's turned into more of like capitalism has turned more into like a fascist economy. And the opposite of fascism is what? Socialism slash communism. It seems like to me like capitalism is almost kind of dead in this world or dead in society now. And the only way to really make money is to steal. I know that sounds wrong and I'm not advocating for anyone to do that, but it seems like to me that's sort of how the switches are now. Is just how can I steal money and obtain money through red tape, loopholes, smoke and mirror service, whatever. It just seems like to me those are the times we're living in now, and it almost seems like I had a conversation with a coworker of mine because he talks about this kind of stuff too. And we had a private one, and he was telling me it almost seems like we have to be self-sufficient in everything now in order to truly know that we're getting the best quality service. So in other words, be your own mechanic, be your own house repair. I had a homegirl of mine, her family moved to another state, and her dad's building his own home from scratch, using his own materials, cutting out the labor costs. Yeah, it's gonna take longer for him to build it, but he's doing it from scratch and everything. And it just seems like we're headed to those times where you're gonna have to be your own farmer, your own pharmacist, your own fucking You're going to have to produce and obtain knowledge in so much areas you thought you never could do in order to make sure that your quality of life remains what it used to be when you used to entrust other people. I think the morale in this country has gone completely down the hill. I think we live in times where people have become more domesticated. Nobody really goes out anymore. People are not really, don't really, are not really motivated to want to work, and which I don't blame them to a degree. You have inflation out the roof. People hate each other. Nobody gets along anymore, it seems. We have a demoralized society. And then not to mention you have to go online and see a bunch of these jerk offs obtaining millions of dollars for doing hardly nothing on the internet. And it just devalues your job as like what you do now as a profession. And you just feel like, well, damn, not only does my government misuse my tax dollars, but some 6-year old is doing, or 16 or 14-year olds doing something stupid on the internet is making 10 times this money for doing something that's not even like a real quality service in society. And yet I'm sitting here busting my ass doing a job I think is important, and yet it doesn't mean anything. So you just feel like it's just like a big L. It's just like a big fucking L. You know, I remember when social media, when it first came out, it was predominantly meant for you to just keep in touch with people of your family, friends, etc. Now it's just, oh, it's just like, oh, let's just make fake videos and fake, pranks and fake this, and everybody's in on it, and nobody's really producing any real content. You don't even know what's real anymore. People just produce all this fake fucking content, and they make all this money, and it's just like the whole society is just demoralized from, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like demoralized. Vampires. Yep, the president positions over the last 16 years or so has turned into a popularity exactly, Jalen. I agree. Best interest at heart. Yep, it's Fabian socialism. They'll use anything and everything. Well, be honest with you, man. It's the way I see it is it's whether you're right or left. It's, to me, I don't really feel a difference. I used to think that being a conservative was just the best thing in the world. I would say maybe 2016, 2017, 2018 it did. Now it feels like the same as being a Democrat almost. It doesn't feel much of a difference. And I just feel like, and maybe I'm wrong for saying this, but I feel like when you used to support Donald Trump back in the day, it felt like a movement to turn the country around, right? It felt like a movement for something new. Oh, well, Trump's not a politician, this or that. And we were pushing on the fact that he's not one of the regular, this is somebody that we can relate to, blah, blah, blah. And that was the sell of it, right? Now it's just like, it doesn't feel any different now. It still feels like it's the same as if it were a Democrat running the country. It doesn't feel any different. It doesn't feel different at all. It still feels the same. And everybody hates each other. Nobody wants to date. Nobody wants to do this. Nobody wants to do that. People are fighting over who's, the better race, who's the better religion, who's better at this, who's better at that. And it's just, and then if not, you got to watch a lot of these people online talk about how they're better than you because they have all these fast cars and all these women and stuff. It's just, we live in a demoralized society. It's almost kind of hard to explain. When you go out places now, they used to be packed. Now they're not. I go to the movies once a week. It's dead. Like sometimes I'm one of only maybe a couple people in there. We live in a society that, yep, beat the same boss, the same as the old boss. Yep. Again, I know some people on here, They're not going to like what I have to say about Trump. And, that's fine. I just, at this point, I think he's acting more as a tyrant than he was when I first remembered him back in 2016, where he was about change and he sold the, make America great again and this and that. And, his first 2 years are his best of the 8. And he's still got 3 more. I understand that. So technically he's only kind of been in office for a little over 5 years. But at the same time, it's just, I don't really see any difference. Dehumanized, yeah. He's becoming too radical, yep. He's becoming more of a tyrant. He's actually, and that's what I'm saying. Trump, to me, he comes more across as a Democrat than he does a Republican. If you look at his legislation, you look at the fact he kept most of Obama's laws, you look at the fact that he's driven the deficit up, which he says the Democrats do so much. Trump is doing the exact same thing that Obama did and the exact same thing Biden did. He's almost repeating the same thing as the behaviors, the mannerisms, the legislation, the way he carries himself, the driving of the deficit, the devaluing of the dollar, the increased taxes. That's all Democratic policies, Democratic enforced shit. Why is Donald Trump doing this? Why? I'm just saying. I'm just pointing out the obvious. Oh, well, Joe Biden's all for corporations. Well, it seems like you are too. There's no fucking different. Joe Biden's all for bailing out corporations. Oh, look what Obama did. He bailed out AIG. Yeah, I agree. He shouldn't have bailed them fuckers out. He should have let them go out of business. But the point that I'm making is, sir, is you're doing the same thing. Wow. I mean, I don't even know what else to say. That's why I say be very careful, people. Look, the point I want y'all to learn on this video before I get out of here in about 10 minutes, I'm just letting you know this is the one thing I want y'all to take away from this video. Okay. Just because they say that you're making more minimum wage doesn't mean your life is going to suddenly increase, make it better. It's smoke and mirrors. Sure, you have the extra $1,000 a month. You have the extra $1,500 a month. But what they don't tell you is that you're taxed at a higher rate because you make more income. So they're going to tax you more. And with the cost of living continuing to go up, it doesn't really feel like it was much of a difference. To go out and eat, to go out to a movie, to go out here, to go out there, it's expensive. You got to tip your waiter, tip your waitress. To go to a movie for 2, what is that, like $40 just to get in the theater? That's not including if you spend anything on food. I mean, sure, you can sneak your own food in, but hell, you go to a corner store, candy bars are about almost $3. Sodas are $2.50, 2 sodas for $5. I'm ready to get that for $1. Gas prices are now jumped up $1 in my state. So only a matter of time before gases go up to $4 or $5 a gallon. Only a matter of time. And then what happens then? The cost of imports of goods and services will go up as a result because it's going to cost more to transport those items. $830 million a day for that war right now that we're currently in as we enter in day 11. Motherfucker, that's $10.8 billion that we costed on this war. And that's just in the 11 days. And God knows how much longer this is going to go on. We're broke, but we have the money for everything else. We're broke, but we have the money to print out. We're broke, but we can fund other places. We're broke, but we can afford the war. We're broke, but you get kickbacks. We're broke, but taxes increase. We're broke, but you misuse our money. It's funny, when it's helping people here, we're broke. But when it's helping other people out in other parts of the world, we're not broke. We're not broke. And another thing, Another thing I want to mention, and that's very important. Why the fuck are you taxing us when you damn well know, that you're just printing the money up anyway? So what's the fucking point of taxing us when you're just printing up the money regardless? When you're printing up money out of thin air, with this legalized counterfeiting and inflating our economy, you're basically telling me two things. What is the purpose of taxing me? And number two, you're telling me that my dollar that I work for doesn't mean jack shit because you're just printing up the fucking money anyway. That's what you're telling me. That's what you're basically saying in one lump sum. Is that the money I work for means nothing, and why the fuck am I being taxed to begin with if you're just going to print the money up anyway? Just to misuse it again. Corruption. That's why I said term limits. The House, the Senate, Congress, I'm hearing 12 years, a hinted rumor on proposed term limits. I say 8 years. But 12, I would say if that is the case, that's the max. No more than that. Anywhere between 8 and 12 years, I'm okay with that. But of course, you have to be voted in for that shit. I don't care if they get 8 years, they win the first vote for 8 years, that's fine. But if you want the additional 4, you got to be voted in for that. But it should be a minimum of 8, or a minimum max of 8 and a max of 12 beyond. There's no such thing as a career politician. I don't want to hear this shit about you've been a politician for 40, 50 fucking years. No. Absolutely not. They would gone full dictator. I mean, when Marvin said we're so divided on so many issues here, it just seems like it's just going to be impossible to get out of it. Yeah, I know. That's how they keep people distracted. The war distracted us from the Epstein files. Now the wage hikes will distract it from the Epstein files and from the war. So people are going to now fight about, well, should they be making 30? I look at it like it doesn't matter anyway. The dollar's going to collapse, so why does it matter? It's going to happen. I mean, a lot of people think that I'm like flipping out or I'm like acting weird saying this. I truly believe the economy is going to collapse. It's just a matter of time, and the dollar ain't going to mean anything. And it's a shame. It really is, because it used to all be about the free market and let the companies determine it through competition and stuff. And it's like, it seems like to me the way that it's going in the free market is, okay, well, let's just get the politicians, give them large donor, give them large tax breaks. Let's be a donor for this politician. He increases, gives us tax breaks, impose taxes on the smaller people, and thus driving the middleman out of the business market, which are your local mom and pop stores, and keeping the large corporations intact. To me, that doesn't sound like a free market competition. It sounds like kickbacks, bribery, and also insider trading, whatever you want to call it, to keep the big fish intact, to keep a monopolization on the market while flooding out the 80 to 70% of your mom and pop businesses, and thus bringing the market down to maybe 5 to 6, maybe 10 corporations that sort of own everything. They can control real estate. They can control the stock market. They can control your food, right? They can control your gas, right? So if they control the food, they can control the masses, because they can essentially say, you got to eat. You got to eat sometime. You got to drink water. You're going to comply with what we say or else. It sounds like to me we're headed towards a very dark path. And if people say, well, just let the dollar collapse, and let's just say, let the dollar collapse and let's just go to digital currency. And it's like, I don't want digital currency, because what happens is they'll say, okay, well, Young Link, Rose, all you guys, we're just going to give you $5,000 a month. Don't worry about working no more. And it sounds like on paper, okay, cool. I make $5,000 a month, bet I ain't got to work. fuck it, it's vacation time. You know, I got my credit card. Let me pull out my digital card. It's like having tokens for an arcade game. You know, like imagine that. You're at Dave and Buster's or your favorite arcade place, and you got that card in your hand that says, "Hey, I got 5, 6, 7,000 credits." And that's what I look at the digital currency. Like it's similar to that. You go to your local store, you buy 2 Cokes, 10 tokens. You're like, okay, so you scan the card, the 20 tokens come off. So you're like, okay, cool. I still got, 4,980 tokens. All right, bet, you buy a meat, they want 50 tokens. All right, well, I still got 4,930. That's sort of why I look at what digital currency is. They're basically going to start going by points and all this crap. To me, that sounds scary. Because first of all, the government's prying into your business life and knowing every dollar you spend. And to me, it's none of your business. Let me repeat that. It's none of your effing business of where I spend my money. That's none of your business. But they get to know that. They sit there looking and prying through your life. I don't care where you work for. You have no business knowing if I bought 2 sodas or not. That's none of your concern. They're also going to try to catch people who are cheating out of their taxes. But my question is this. If that is the case, which, okay, whatever, everybody pays a fair share. Are you going to do away with a lot of these taxes and impose the tax reform? Or are you going to eat all my damn tokens up? You going to do that? And not to mention, the scary thing is what if there's a hack in the system? What if they say, oh, we're going to turn your cards off? Because we don't like the way that you did this or this. And we're going to penalize you. You're going to go a week without that pass or without that card. So guess what? I hope you bought your food and paid your bills in advance because you sure as hell go a week without using it. What's to stop them from doing that? They can shut the card off. It's like a credit card. Same thing. It's like it's almost as like, to me, it seems like they have more control. They can pry into your life. They can know where your money's going, where it's being spent, where it's being moved. To me, it sounds like it's none of their business. There's no, to me, it seems like invasion of privacy 101 through legalization of just collapsing the dollar and just converting to digital currency. Let's just go ahead. Let's just go ahead and just invade people's privacy. Let's just go ahead. We're that nosy. We got nothing else better to do. We just want to pry in your lives. Remember what I said about term limits? If you don't have term limits, what happens? Corruption. And so, what do you think this is? Corruption. And remember what I said. When you have all the money through briberies, kickbacks, insider trade, and all this shit that these politicians have been doing for so long, stealing, why do you think they want to be in power so bad? Why do you think it matters? They could buy anything they want. Everything's just a number now to them because they could buy it whenever they want because they have the money. They've been stealing for so long. So what is to stop them? What is the purpose of them being in office at 90 years old? It's just they get their rocks off. It's power. It's imposing rule and law and legislation on others to make their lives more miserable. They get a kick out of it. It's a thrill. They love it. It's their Viagra. It's their caffeine in the morning, in their coffee. It's their caffeine. And it really doesn't matter if you're left or right. They all love doing this. It is a thrill to them, man. It's like, man, I can impose my will on others and make their lives miserable, and I can just sit here back and watch. I love it. Man, this is fun. I just love making other people's lives miserable. That's what they're doing. That's why they don't want the term limits. Oh, man, you mean to tell me I can't be in office for 50 years to ruin your life? That's the only way you hold people accountable, is you can't have them in office that long. Corruption at its finest, man. It's disgusting. I see the amounts of people on social media, even the ones that aren't government affiliated or not politically affiliated, that are part of politics. They go on here yapping and saying, I have all this money and I got all these cars and I got all these women and you ain't shit. Nobody wants you, you know, and you're a peasant. And look at you, you're a busboy, you're a fucking policeman, you're a firefighter, you know, you're a peasant. What does that tell people that actually perform these jobs, that are actually important jobs? Oh, you're a military guy. You're just what do they call those people? They say, oh, you're just the government's lapdog. You hear this shit on the internet. Don't tell me y'all haven't heard that shit before. I hear it all the time. So I know if I've heard it, y'all have heard it. So you're just a government lapdog. You're at the command of the government. It's like, these are all important jobs. And then everybody now wants to be a streamer or podcaster. And now the market's so infatuated with streamers and podcasters, they all look and sound exactly the same. You couldn't tell the difference between most of them. They all look the same. Everyone's just a carbon copy of the next person. No one's creative. No one wants to create their own content that actually makes them unique. They're lazy and entitled, and they just want to use the platform to be some sort of juvenile on the internet. Yeah, I know. You're right, young Link. Important jobs don't get paid nothing. Oh, there's women on here that show feet pics all day and they're multimillionaires. You can't make this up. You see these jackasses, these people on here all day doing stupid dumb shit and they're multimillionaires. I don't understand it. Completely offer nothing to society. And I know you're going to say, oh, well, you're just jealous. It's like, yes, but at the same time, it tells you that working these regular jobs that are important are the only reason why you guys still have a platform. And the fact that these people are out here putting their lives on the line in certain jobs like construction, law enforcement, military, and just other jobs in general, it just is a big spit in their face to basically saying that, yeah, we're aware that, you know, you're keeping up with whatever society we barely have left, but we're basically just going to tell you you're a dog to your face now on the internet. It's disgusting, man. The disgusting times we live in. We live in times where people are just juveniles on the internet now. It's unfortunate it's that way. It really is. Yeah, young Link. Now, all these contents, they're all pranksters. They all do the same thing. And if you look at most of these streamers, they're all just carbon copies of each other, like copying the next person. There's no creativity in a lot of these content makers. They're all just carbon copy each other. It's disgusting. And most of the videos are fake anyway. Like they pre-rehearsed, it's pre-scripted. All the people they're beefing with, they're all really friends in real life. They're just pretending that it's like it's like legit. It's really not. Yep. Yeah, we are living in scary times, man. It's that's why, like, when people say, oh, the wage hikes and we need more wages, and I'm like, it sounds good because that's just the easy thing to say is, well, $30 an hour is better than 14. Well, yeah, it is, but in an inflated economy with the dollar collapsing and our taxes being misused and the cost of living going up, does it really matter? Let's just say that your job still keeps you around. Let's say that they honor the 40 hours a week. Let's just say, just for shits and giggles, they do that. Is it really going to make your life really any different? I mean, yeah, you could probably pay off a little debt. You could probably pay off a car or something. I'm not saying that there aren't Maybe you have the extra food money to go out. Sure. I mean, there are some benefits. I'm not going to sit here and say there's not, but it's not going to be a life-changing impact. It's just all from short monetary game. You're still going to be in the rat race. You're still chasing after a worthless dollar. You're chasing after higher inflation, taxes constantly going up. You're chasing a housing market crisis bubble. You're chasing the college crisis bubble collapsing. I mean, it's when you look at the long term thing, and then not to mention if the dollar completely collapses, you kind of see the light ahead of the tunnel, and you're like, so if I make, let's say, $50 an hour, young Link, we're gonna give you a raise of $50 an hour. Okay, great. I mean, that sounds good on paper, right? But let's just say if somebody came by and said, hey, young Link, I'm just letting you know the economy is going to collapse in 2030, you're not really going to feel any more excited about that raise, because when you're looking at the bigger picture, you see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you realize, well, damn, well, I'm working 4 years for nothing then. I'm not telling you to quit your job, but in your mind you feel like, well, damn, that's kind of demoralizing. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. You mean to tell me that what I'm working for is not going to mean nothing in 3 years? And what's the fucking point? Like what kind of joke is this? And you see that, and that's why you don't really get thrilled. Like, you could tell me, hey, Rose, you're going to make $80 an hour. I mean, hell yeah, I'll be happy. I might low key, when I get off the stream, like, ooh, that's a good one. Ooh, but then when I look at it in the long run, I'm like, well, if the dollar's going to collapse, inflation's going up, this, and that, man, it doesn't really feel like any difference. Like, it's like a mind thing almost. It's like it's inside of your own head. It's just an illusion. Money is just an illusion. It's just a transfer of energy. That's what money technically is. When people look at the $100 bill, they look at it like, I got $100. Oh my God. When I look at it as a transfer of energy. I'm like, all right, I got about 2 days worth of food here. I can go see a movie, and maybe get some food, $40. Then I go out, spend $40 going here, $20 on gas. That's how I look at the $100 bill now. But when I look at the $100, I see it as 10 items of groceries if I'm lucky. 10 to 14 items. When back then, that $100 would be like, damn, I got a whole basket full of shit here. Ooh. Like, ooh, I got 2 baskets full of stuff. Shit, I broke the $100 thresh mark. I'm getting a whole fucking box. Now you're lucky to get fucking quarter of the basket filled. That's how I look at the $100. I see it as fucking worthless now. I went to Walmart one time. I had like $300. I thought I had too much on me. Shit, I still had to fucking take some money out of the ATM. I'm like, God damn, I went over $300. Fuck, man. And I didn't even have not even half the fucking basket filled. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, this shit's fucking gone up, man. Pretty soon that $100 bill is gonna be on the toilet paper. Just wipe your fucking ass with that shit. Entertainment escapism is valued higher than necessities. Yep. Why shall we get replaced by AI? It's already going to happen. And see, I'm glad you brought that up, Ghost, because this is another reason why about the wage hikes, and I'm going to get into you about it right now. AI is going to replace us regardless if the minimum wage is $5 or $30. If corporations feel that they don't have to pay us nothing, what's to stop them? Because you think about it, right? $5 is still $5 an hour times how many employees times whatever, right? So some people think, well, if we go back to $5, that'll be the answer. And maybe I thought that about a couple of years ago. Now I'm not believing that anymore. I believe that AI is coming regardless of what the wage is going to be. which is another illusion. It's just a distraction from the fact that AI is taking all these jobs anyway. So even if you said, well, okay, let's go to $5 an hour or $6 or seven, let's just say $8. We'll go to $8 and man, that'll fix everything. And these companies aren't going to push for AI. They're not going to try to shit. You think they're going to stop now? Fuck no, they're not. That's why when we had that recession in '06 under Bush, remember the recession we had under him with the energy crisis? Remember when they were laying employees off and weren't bringing them, or the story behind it was they were laying employees off. And then what happened after the inflation or the gas prices went back down and the cost of services went down to normal? They still didn't hire because they were like, well, if the assembly line can perform at the same rate that it did before with more people, then why should we have to hire more people when we can withhold that money and we can increase our profit margin and just tell young Link to go fuck himself and he's going to do a 4-man job, even though he's doing a 2-man job now, but we're going to make him do a 4-man job because it was already working. So why should we have to hire 2 people? We could just get young Link to do a 4-man job at his profession, with no disrespect intended, but that's the mentality of how these corporations are thinking. Why are we going to revert back despite the fact that you lowered the wage? No, we're still going to go for AI. We're still going to eliminate a lot of these jobs, and it's still going to lower the budget cost, and then we increase profit margin. Anything at the end of the day that's going to increase profit margin, they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop with AI because the wages went up. Now, yes, because wages went up, it forced them to go probably all in and say, we need to figure out results faster to cover this because we need to relieve labor costs. Well, guess what? If that wage went down to $5 an hour, I can bet your dairy ass they are not gonna go back on AI because they're gonna say, well, with AI, we don't have to pay you anything now. We don't even have to pay you the $5 an hour. Now we could pay you $0 because we got a robot that's going to do this shit for free. Just saying. They didn't budge back during the George Bush recession when they laid employees off and then they thought they were going to bring them back because prices went back to normal. Fuck no, they didn't. People were having to do 1, 2, 3-man jobs. And this was going on back in the early 2000s. It's just now it's snowballed effect and got worse because you had COVID and you got all this marvelous, we're at $40 trillion debt. Misuse of our tax dollars, a lot of corruption going on. Well, it's a pyramid scheme. It is a pyramid scheme. That's why for these elections, I don't even know how I want to vote, bro. Unless they say term limits, tax reform, do away with property taxes. If no politicians are gonna talk about those issues, and we just kind of get this run around with all this other crazy bullshit about should we fund schools, should we not fund schools anymore, should we do this, should we do that, what the wages should be like. If they're gonna argue that dumb shit, you just count me out. I'm not even gonna bother voting. Bother that dumb shit, man. That's why if they were to say in Texas, like we're gonna raise wages to $20 an hour, I don't know who that politician was. But somebody said, I think it's Bernie Sanders, if I'm correct. And he says, well, if I were president right now, I'm going to raise the minimum wage, the national minimum wage to $15 an hour. Because you need to pay them for the $15 they deserve. You know what I think to that? I just think it's a joke. What the fuck does it matter when the dollar's going to collapse? That's the first thing I would respond to him. Why the fuck would it matter when our dollar's in collapse and we're in hyperinflation. I make 25 an hour, 26 almost. You think to me, I hardly make nothing. Even with the overtime I'm working, it doesn't feel different. Sure, it does from the number point, the extra zero, sure. But other than that, on the cost of living, it doesn't really feel like I'm making much, man. That's why, if he says that dumb shit again, I'm going to raise it to $15. I'm like, motherfucker, most of these jobs already pay $15. You know, it's like, Jesus Christ. You hear that dumbass shit from Bernie Sanders again. You know, we're going to raise it to $15. You know, the only thing I agree about Bernie Sanders on is that he talks about the fraud in politics and how the kickbacks, and he was talking about large donors and everything. But really, then it really wouldn't surprise me if he had a large kickback and had donors as well. I don't really trust any of these people. They're all just smoke and mirrors. And he's part of the swamp too, because he's been in office for like 60 years. They're all probably part of it, and they're friends. It's like watching, like, you know, when you watch wrestling and those guys, like, they hate each other in the ring, but then like behind the scenes they're all like hugging and eating hamburgers and shit. It's kind of like what I think these politicians do. I think they just argue on camera, and then once it's all done, they're like at your local McDonald's or something, and they're like, hey, you know, now that it's over, you know, these idiots, I mean, these Americans are watching us. Let's just go ahead and, you know, hey, drinks on me, you know, and Trump's gonna be, I paid last time, you motherfucker. You stop being so cheap, Bernie, and you pay this time. You know, they're just pencil stroking each other, just their egos clashing. That's why when you see Capitol Hill, and you'll see, like, they'll call people up to Capitol Hill and they'll ask them questions, they'll point fingers, and it's just a bunch of fucking corrupt politicians just chalking elbows, rubbing elbows. That's what they call it. They're just all just rubbing elbows with each other. I'm so sick of it, dude. That's why I just say, let's just call for term limits. You know, it wouldn't surprise me if the Republicans and the Democrats, they super join and make a super party, all of them can join together. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, they're already kind of doing that already, but it wouldn't shock me if they all just join forces and make one super party, which is a very strong possibility. Will we have an election at that point? Are they just going to nominate two people and then just say, well, these are two people that are going to run, just one primary race? These talks really exhaust you. They really do. And it's just, the more answers you think you have, the more questions continue to pop up. They just continue to pop up. Politics is an ugly game. It's been like this for quite some time. I think now the cat's out of the bag, and, you know, this has been going on for a while. So yeah, if you guys are watching this, there's 4 of you right now, 5 now, and you see the headlines that your state is pushing for a $15 an hour, $20 an hour, it ain't gonna matter at the end, bro. It really doesn't. And if you're making, let's say, 12 an hour and you jump up to 25, or 30, then hey, all power to you, but it ain't gonna matter, because at the end of the day, it's just smoke and mirrors, and it's just, it takes us away from the issues of the higher cost of living, the higher cost of medicine, the higher cost of food. Our taxes are going up. The cost of goods and services will probably go up too. There are going to be some challenges that comes with these wage hikes. I know y'all don't want to hear that. And I make 25 an hour. So let's say they do the national The national minimum wage will be 30 bucks an hour. So like, would I benefit from it? From an extra zero on my paycheck? Maybe. But then again, I make two extra $1,000 a month, but then the cost of living's gone up. I just feel like I'm breaking even, or if not, I'm under the eight ball. So instead of having to raise the minimum wage so much to satisfy the masses from a small band-aid on a giant wound, how about let's address the reason why the taxes are high to begin with? Well, first of all, we have too many taxes in this country, and it's time that we need to start slicing at some of these taxes that are unnecessary or unimportant. Let's do away with the property tax and impose a flat tax at 8%. So instead of your dollar being taxed at 60%, 70%, now it's only taxed at 8%. Let's do away with the state tax, like in California, that's causing, homeowners to have to experience a higher cost of living. Let's do away with, the gift tax. The gift tax is ridiculous. If I give somebody $5,000, it's already been taxed before, and you're telling me that that tax is then being passed again to the next person, and when that 5,000 was already taxed to begin with. So now they're paying an additional tax because you gifted some. That's stupid. You see what I'm saying? I'm not just talking to myself, because I know what I'm saying does make a lot of good points. I'm just saying, it's so like I said, these wage hikes, they're just a distraction. That's all it is. Hell, they could say we're going to raise minimum wage to 80 bucks an hour. Let's not stop there. 100 bucks. Understand that these wage hikes, it's just going to make it worse. The cost of living will go up even more than it already has. It's already gone up. Now it's going to go up more. And then they're going to say, "Oh, well, we got to raise the wages again because everything else has gone up again." And then it's just we're right back at this tug of war between cost of living versus wage hikes. It's that constant battle of trying to catch up with someone, the rat race to try to catch up to the tax hikes. And it's just it's a never ending solution. So what my proposal is how about we do a tax reform in this country, so therefore we don't always have to say, you know what, let's increase the taxes or let's increase the wages. If the taxes were low, maybe it would strive for us to do better in our field, to move up and make higher wages that way, versus the cost of living is so sporadically out of control, and therefore we're trying to force the arm of our legislative lawmakers in order to pass legislation for a higher wage. To me, I think it would be better to have tax reform. That way you have a little bit of tax breaks or more tax breaks, and therefore your dollar lasts longer, and you can invest that dollar into what? Your local mom and pop businesses, and start supporting local mom and pop, and let the free trade market really be what it's about. You know, we need to stop the corruption. Let's go ahead and do away with large donors or uh, 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 politicians receiving donors for campaign funds. How about let's do that? Let's put an end to insider trading. Let's put an end to term. Let's start term limits. Let's address these things the right way, and therefore we can get something done and really get this country turned into the direction it needs to go. No more battles on. We don't need Capitol Hill anymore. That's just a joke. You go on Capitol Hill, you plead the fifth. People rubbing elbows. Tired of that shit. I'm tired. I'm tired of watching that crap. We know this politician slammed this person today at the hearing. I'm like, I don't care. Who gives a shit? Yeah, go. Same here. I'm reading your comment. Trump, unfortunately, is not. He's part of the swamp. He's just a different. He just has a different boat and a different paddle. Maybe not from the same people, but he's on a different team that's just doing the same shit. He made $3 billion last year. Ask him where all that money came from. Oh, it came from real estate investments. Really? I highly doubt that. He's receiving large donor campaigns from large corporate. I know that's why if you look at a lot of these legislation he passed, so that corporations can receive large tax breaks, and then lie to our faces and tell us unemployment rates of 4%. Like, that's not true. It's way higher than 4%. I wouldn't doubt if unemployment rate's around 20% right now. They're just not telling you that. They're lying to us. And they think we're fucking stupid. It's like, dude, nobody goes out anymore because the cost of living's so high. Even the little places I go out, like to the movies and go out to eat, go look around, dude. There's hardly no one in these places. It's dead. Most of these businesses are dead. He's lying. Trump is nothing more than a troll. I hate to say it, you know. I wanted it to work out with him. Maybe I was hoping, maybe he could sort of turn. I don't. Honestly, he's all about corporations. Same thing Joe Biden was doing. He's no different than Joe Biden. I hate to say it, but I wanted it to work, but I was wrong. I didn't vote for him in 2024, but I didn't vote in the last election. But I predict the elections are going to be. Marvin asked me. I think it's going to be J.D. Vance versus Gavin Newsom. I think you're going to see a lot more of the same crap. It's almost like it's a Biden versus Trump bit again. It's ridiculous, dude. You know how Gavin Newsom ran California. Yeah. You really want him to be the president? Come on, man. And then you got J.D. Vance, who's going to be pushing more of Trump's policies, which are failed Democratic policies. God, it's just a joke at this point. Sorry, I got a cough. It's a joke. I don't know what else to say. If you guys got any questions, I'll take some questions. Or thoughts, or do you agree with what I'm saying? Do you disagree? Do you respect? Because look, even if you disagree with everything I said or some parts, it's fine. You're entitled to your own opinion. That's what, the Second Amendment, or First Amendment's all about, I apologize, is the fact that we have freedom of speech, even though I don't think we really do. But I like to honor it. I like to honor the freedom of speech. That's why another legislation I would abolish. What is it? 8151, and I would abolish 17. What is it? 56 or 36? 1736. Those legislation bills that were basically enacting our freedom of speech, censorship bills. Oh, they would be repealed and ultimately gone. 8151 and 1736, I think is what it is. I would abolish both of them. Trump's basically using both of those bills so that he can impose censorship on the left, and I don't agree with it. Again, I don't agree whether Obama did it to Republicans or whether Trump did it to the Democrats. Or even Biden was doing it. I don't agree with it. But again, I think people should have the freedom of speech to say, yes, are there consequences? Absolutely. Not going to sit here and get away from that. But to censor people and, all this crap is stupid. People should have the freedom of, that's what the whole purpose of it is. I mean, what's the point of having the amendment if you're not going to be able to honor it? I would do away with any censorship bills. Give the power of the back to the mic. Even if people said the shit I didn't like, it's not for me to say. It's not their job to make sure that they say everything that I agree with or that I'm going to enjoy. It's their ability to say something and be their speeches to be protected as long as they're not hurting anyone. And it goes both ways. If people were to say, Stephen, I don't agree with anything you have to say and I don't like you, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. You have that right. Who am I to tell you you can't say that? Who am I to tell you can't say that? But at the same time, when I tell you something, then it should be honored both ways. And right now, what you're seeing in the economy is one side pushing for their freedom of speech while in the ability of restricting others, and that I do not agree with. And I don't even care if the party it's to my benefit. No. Because even the people that are the opposition to me, if they have the freedom of speech to want to say that they don't like this or they don't like that, then they should be, I have to respect that. I have to respect that. And like you go and you look at the Super Bowl and Bad Bunny, and everybody was like, oh, he should speak English. I'm like, well, does it really matter? Because I don't even like his music anyway. So even if it was half in English, what was it going to make the performance any better? No, because I'm just not a fan of him to begin with. I don't even like the halftime show. I just use it as an opportunity to take a shit break. So it didn't matter if he said the whole thing in English. It wasn't going to matter because it just wasn't a good halftime show. And then, just to be fair, Kid Rock's performance was trash too. It turned into a political shit show. Basically Bad Bunny was representing the left and Trump, and Kid Rock was representing the right. It was a joke. The halftime show became a political platform to push left and right agenda. The right's pushing fascism, the left is pushing socialism. There's no difference. Halftime show is just mostly political based in your window. Vote right, vote left. It's just like, dude, I don't need this shit on. That's why, like, when it's halftime, I don't even watch it. I go on to do my own thing, watch a little, YouTube, maybe use the bathroom, kind of freshen up, and then once it's over, I'll be like, oh, halftime show's still on, turn the channel, and then, maybe I'll go do something else, and then go check back. Is halftime show over? Oh, it's got 5 minutes left. Okay, turn the channel. I didn't even waste my time. Waste that time watching that shit. And if you were at the Super Bowl, you could have easily just got up off your ass and went to go use the bathroom and use it. Say, you know what? While this shit show's on, I'm gonna use this to go get some nachos, something to eat. To get a candy bar for my kid. I don't know. Or use the bathroom, restroom break, maybe get some memorabilia, whatever, or just to walk around. Like something. Maybe you need to take a smoke break. Maybe you need to go out into the back patios out there, go take a smoke break. I don't know. Like something. You didn't have to stick around. And it didn't matter if the song was in English or Spanish. To me, it wouldn't have made a difference. I'm not a fan of it anyway. That's what I'm saying. It's distractions. Distractions. It's distractions, and people easily get distracted. They don't look at the bigger picture. It's a joke. Marvin said, what sucks is I don't even get notifications on your videos whenever you go live. I only see it on your Facebook live. Yeah. I told you, when you get shadow banned, they do this to you. You'd rather die than vote? You may be right. Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I think that's goes a little bit too much. I mean, can I vote for myself? I'm gonna vote for myself. I'm not gonna vote for anyone else. If that's the case, they say vote or die. I'm like, hey, you never said who I had to vote for. Is right. You know, remember that gorilla Hombre when they were voting for him, and he had like 25,000 votes for state, wherever state. I think he was in the Cincinnati Zoo. Which what Cincinnati's what, Ohio? Well, shit, I'll just vote for Hombre. I'm just like, hey, I'll just vote for Hombre. Just write his name in, and then do that. I'm not fucking vote for a politician. No way. I'm gonna vote for Hombre next time. Now you know who I'm gonna vote for? Watch this. That's who I'm gonna vote for right there. Little pause. I'm gonna vote for you, bro. On God. I'm gonna vote for you, bro. I'm gonna vote for him, man. Oh, I know you were teasing. That's who I'm gonna vote for. I'm gonna vote for my cat. On God. It's ridiculous. Oh, man, this country's going down the toilet, bro. I see it. And it's hard not to notice this shit. People are just demoralized, defeated. That's how it looks like here in the West. People are just defeated, demoralized, no sense of urgency. It looks like they just gave in and threw in the towel. Just like most people are just like, you know what? I just throw in the towel. I'm out. I'm done. A bunch of smiling emos, face emos, like with the eyes and mouth out. I don't know who's doing that, but it's showing up on my feed. I'm just saying it's a shame, man. Oh, you're doing it? Cool. It's I really wish that things were different. You know, when I was younger, I saw the world differently, and I'm older now, I see the world for what it really is, man. It's just, I'm not saying there's not good people in there. There is. It's just, it seems like to me like the ones who are in charge are not, um, the ones that are in charge do not have the best intentions for us. A lot of them are corrupt. They can't be trusted. And a lot of them are criminals. It's a shame. It really is. I don't know what else to say, man. It's even if, let's say, I got in office, hypothetically, which I don't think that'll happen. But even if I was to win and get in office, I'm pretty sure I would have to butt heads with some of the big guys there. And they would most likely get me out. Like, you know what I'm saying? They would make my life a living hell. Especially if I try to end property taxes. I think that they would make sure that I'm cooked. You know? They would probably block most of my legislation. They would take me to court. I'm sure they would find some way to, if they couldn't impeach me, assuming, just hypothetically, but if they couldn't impeach me, they would find a way to just make sure that I couldn't do anything. At this point, no, I don't have any. Um, I just don't know what else to say. Just, I'll tell you what I guess frustrates me the most. And I know it's kind of wrong for me to say this because, well, it's not really wrong, but I tend to see the good side in everyone, even if I think they don't deserve it. I tend to see the good in everybody. That's one of my weak points. I will admit. When I look at everyone and I talk to people, I give them the benefit of the doubt. I let my guard down, and I tend to I tend to think everyone is a good person. And while that's good to think that and to say, okay, everyone has good intentions, but there are some people that are just really evil in this world, and it's have to always remember that is a possibility, even though I give them the benefit of the doubt, even if I say, hey, this is, you know, you know, I have to give them the benefit of the doubt, because my heart, my intuition knows that, but some people really don't deserve that, you know? And that's I would say my weak point is seeing the good in everyone. Because it is a weakness. Sometimes it's better to always be in panic mode, because when you're in panic mode, you kind of react in a more dire situation, because sometimes you know yourself more than you know everyone else. And sometimes you have to go on that instinct, because it helps protect you. It could help save your life. It could help, um, you know, I'm just saying it can help you save your life by being, being, kind of having your guard up just a slight, you know, when you try to entrust others so much, you just never know. Sometimes people don't always have your best interest. You may have the best interest for people. You want to help people. You want to do things for people. But sometimes people don't have your best interest at heart. So sometimes you always just have to I don't know, you have to be careful about who you help, what you do for us. Some people are sharks out there in this world that will tell you whatever you want to hear to extract resources from you, and the whole time they're not even looking out for your best interest. They're just essentially using you. Sometimes you have to be on top of that. You have to sleep with one eye open. You just never know, man. No. Fight or flight. Yeah, you have to. I let my guard down a lot, and I want to trust everybody, and yeah, that's cool. You want to be the nice guy or the friendly guy. You want to be a guy that's generally you get along with everyone. you know, it works. Don't get me wrong, for most people, because again, you know, people are going to remember you based on the way you treated them, based on the way you made them feel. Right? That's sort of how life is in the grand scheme of things. They're going to remember you how you treat them. That's how people remember you, because they'll say, "Oh, how do you remember so and so?" Right? You're going to remember that dude for if he treated you like crap. You remember all the bad times. You can remember the good times. You're going to like, man, that dude treated me like shit. You know? And then you're going to remember this person, say, oh, this person was good to me. I fucks with this person. I'll fight for this person. Uh, that kind of ordeal. But even though for most people it works to give them the benefit of that, or to, let's say, it works for the vast majority of people, like maybe 80% of the people, 85% of the people you meet in your life, Generally, being nice and being cool and stuff, it works. But there's always that percentage of people who are sharks and will use that to their advantage to take advantage of you. And that's just the reality of it. And that's when, seeing the good in everybody can really work against you, because all it takes is one person to trust that is on some really dumb shit that could end up screwing you over, that can cost you your life or cost you a misery in life. Loss in finances, loss of your dignity, loss of everything. I mean, it just depends, the situation. But sometimes you can't always have your guard down for everybody you meet. Sometimes it's good to have your guard up. Fight or flight. That's a good way to put it. Love thy neighbor doesn't mean you have to trust my neighbor. Yeah, absolutely, exactly. But you still want to treat people with dignity and respect. You shouldn't walk around cursing like a sailor, treating people like crap because you think it's cool. You know, there's advantages and disadvantages to that. Like, people will say, okay, well, I don't want to fuck with Ghost Machine because he's an asshole and stuff. Sure, but he stands on business. But then again, they're gonna say, he's just doing his job or he's just doing this. But then again, it creates what tension. And then sometimes people will say, oh, well, you walk around like you think you're some sort of badass. Now we're going to see how tough you really are. And there's always going to be, because you know how guys are. If you have 50 men in a room, right? Let's just say, for example, there's 50 men in a room, and one guy comes in there and starts talking a lot of shit, right? And then you got one guy that's super nice, right? Well, both can be just as bad and both can be just as good. The problem is, when you're too nice, it's good, but then it's bad because people will take advantage of you because they think, oh, he's never going to say no, right? So you'll have those other guys that'll try to buddy and be friend with you so they can get resources and shit from you and think that, so even if they're not trying to take advantage of you per se, trying to kill you or anything, but they'll still try to extort what resources they can because they know you're never going to say no. Now, if you got the other guy that is kind of an asshole, doesn't really do much for people, that's just that. Yeah, sure, you're gonna you might have some people that are kind of like turned on by that, or people are like, okay, that's cool too. But at the same time, it can also be bad because if you ever need help, those same people will remember you for never helping them. And number two, another bad thing is if you're one of those guys that think he's Billy Joe badass. Well, how men are. You got one guy in a group of 50 and he goes around talking shit. Sooner or later, one of those guys is going to get up there and challenge you. Sooner, it's not a matter if, it's a matter of when. Like, they're going to do it. That's how men are built naturally. So, like, and it could be the smallest guy in the room that may challenge you and say, okay, you think you're a badass. Let's see how tough you really are outside. Just saying, you're talking all this shit, right? Let's see how tough you are outside. And I'm not encouraging that. I'm just telling you that's how men are. Eventually, you run your mouth, someone's going to challenge you. It's not a matter if, it's a matter of when. Someone's going to get up and get in your face and they're going to challenge you. And it could be it could be a guy that's a foot shorter than you. And a lot of thing is people assume that because they're taller and they're bigger, oh, I could just beat you up. But if you watch all these YouTube videos when fighting goes wrong or whatever, it'll be some short dude knocking out some dude that's a foot taller than him. You never, ever, ever underestimate your opponents. A lot of people think because they're taller than you or their lungs are armor, they think it's an automatic dub. And I'm telling you, it's not an automatic dub. You never know. You never know. I'm just what I'm saying is it just, we underestimate people. Like, just what I'm saying in general. Like, you never underestimate your opponent. But what I'm saying is that in the long scheme of things, being too nice and seeing the good in everyone has its pros because you give people a chance, but also its weak points because what? because people will take advantage of that, of your kindness, and they'll see how far I'm willing to go to extract resources from you. It happens. And then you got people that are the opposite. And yeah, you'll get some respect here or there, but then people are going to remember you based on the guy who's never done anything for anyone. Why should I help you now? Right? Well, like why should I go out of my way to help you when you've never went out of your way to do anything for anyone? And then they're going to remember that too. And like, why do you feel entitled to help when you've never taken a day to help anyone? So they're going to remember you for that too. So there's pros and cons to both sides. That's why I think if you were to be what I think you should do is you should be a balanced person. You should be kind with your guard up. So you're in the middle. You're not too nice, but you're not a complete fucking asshole, but you're in the middle. Yes, you're kind-hearted. Yes, you're cool, but you can get ignorant if you have to. You just don't want to. And it's cool that you can have your guard up so that you can watch out for red flags when you see people are up to no good or people that don't have your best intentions in heart, and you can pick up on the flags based on past experiences. That's how you do it. It takes time. Some people are very good at master manipulating you. Yeah, absolutely. I've ran into people like that. They're good at manipulating. I've seen some in action. Hell, I got a brother that's like that. He's very good at manipulating people. Yeah, he picks certain types of people, but he's good at it. And he's like a shark. If he senses out blood, he goes for it. There are people that are like that in this world. You know, that's why sometimes you gotta sleep with one eye open. You have to be alert. You have to watch your P's and Q's. You just never know. People will say anything. Smaller dude is up close. He has the advantage. If a smaller dude swings, he could hit quicker with that dude with long arms. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not trying to make this like a tough guy video. I'm just explaining that, you know, if you're a guy and you're in a room full of 50 men and you always got some loudmouth guy who talks a lot of shit, sooner or later, one guy in the room is going to challenge him. It's just a matter of fact. That's how men are built biologically in their DNA. It is what it is. It doesn't matter how tall you are or how short you are. That's the results of what's going to happen. Someone's going to challenge you. And it may be more than one person that may challenge you. It could be one, it could be two, it could be four. But that's how men sort of balance out that's how men balance the budget. Because another man eventually going to call them out. It just is what it is. It don't matter if you're 7'5" and you're in a room with guys that are 6 feet tall, and you know, eventually you'll get tired of it. You'll say, all right, man, you've been running your mouth for about a month now. We're all getting tired of it. Come outside for a second. We're going to talk about some things. And you know the business after that. You know what's going to happen. It just is. Dude, I've grown up around that shit. It happens. I've played PlayStation with a couple of my homeboys. One of them will always start running his mouth, and another one eventually in the group will be like, hey, man, say we got to go outside with that shit because I'm getting tired of it. All right, bet. You know, because no guy wants to back down. Every guy wants to be a tough guy. Every man is undefeated. Every guy you talk to, they're always undefeated, never lost a fight until you actually see it. And then they go outside, they duke it out after 5 minutes. Shit, business is shit squashed. It just is what it is. The shit is squashed. And then we come in, play video games, shit, we cool. Hop on that PS2 like shit never happened. You know what's the funny thing when women fight? And I've seen this too. 99.9% of the fight, women avoid violence. But that's okay, no worries, because we're built biologically different, right? Women will fight, but it's not what men do. They argue. And they'll go, yeah, yap, yap, yap. So the woman yaps and the other girl yaps. And yap, 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 yap. They'll never say go outside or anything like that, but they'll yap. They'll be yapping, right? Now, I'm not going to say they don't fight, but it's a last-ditch resort. Men use it as the first-ditch resort. Women use it as the last-ditch resort. So they'll argue back and forth. But they'll never say come outside. But they'll argue back and forth. And then They'll stop talking to each other. And then 5, 6, 7, 8 years go by. All of a sudden the phone rings and they'll talk to each other like ain't shit happened. Like nothing happened. I've seen this shit before. I remember one time my mom went years without talking to one of her sisters. And then they just get on the phone like everything's normal. Like 10 years later, I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, if it was us guys, we would have been squashed that shit. We would have went outside, duked that shit out. And in 5 minutes, that shit squashed. It don't matter who the winner, who the loser is. We would have went outside and squashed that shit in 5 minutes. Hey, go outside, handle your business, go back and come back. We'll dab each other. We good. And that's it. But again, men and women have different ways of how we, I guess, resolve the issue. Women resolve it with time. Men resolve it with, come outside and, give me my 5. All right, bet. And you go out, you handle your business. And that's it. Now, that's the end of that story. But hey, if after 5 minutes, they'll become the best of friends. And then it'll be like, it ain't never happened. Like beefing over what? Nah, that shit squashed. We already settled it. All right, bet. It's like the steam came out of the veil. Now, I'm not encouraging it. I'm just telling you how the business is. Biologically, that's how men are. It's just like you go around running your mouth in front of a group of men, one of them eventually is going to challenge you. It's just bound to happen. And I've seen this so many times. So I know that's just the way it is. It's been going on since the beginning of time. Even if let's say I knew I was going to lose a fight, like if I knew I was going to lose, but I just got so tired of it, I'm like, all right, fuck it, let's go outside because I'm tired of this shit. Because one time it was a true story. I got in a fight with one of my cousins. I'll never forget. He was running his mouth, right? We're playing basketball. It was like, we saw play basketball outside. And it would be like 10 on 10, 5 on 5 or whatever. People are waiting to get their next. And we had a dispute about a foul because, you call your own fouls and shit. So, we were going at it, just jawing at it. And he's like, man, fuck it, man. Come out in the street, blah, blah, blah. Da, da, da. I'm like, all right, And I was like, I knew this dude had some hands. So I was like, you know what? I might actually take an L, but fuck it. Fuck it. So I just said, all right, bet. I'll join you out. We were probably in middle school. So I want to say we were probably like 6th grade or 7th grade, somewhere around there. We were real young, man. And he said, man, let's go handle it. Let's go handle it. Like, well, man, I said, all right, all your friends are staring and all the guys are staring. You better not punk out, because what happens at that point, if you punk out and you don't go out there, the other guys are going to look at you, see he's weak. And they're going to be, all right, bet now we're going to fucking punk this dude around. So you better walk out there. That's the way, that's how men operate. I understand the biologics behind it. So I said, all right, bet, we're going to handle this. So we went out there and did our thing. I'm not going to lie, I took an L, but one thing I will say is that I stood on business and I was out there. I handled my licks, put some licks in, and I took the L, and that was the end of it. Just be like, I actually had a lot of respect from the dudes around me, because they were like, hey, Rose, even though you took an L, I respect you for going out there and handling your business, because if you would have sat there and did nothing, oh man, you would have been a target the next day. And that's on God. You would have been a target the next day. So, because other dudes would be like, oh shit, I can just punk this dude and get whatever. Oh shit, man, it's my turn now. And so that's, so sometimes you have to step in that storm to send a message to let everybody else say, hey man, I'll get down too. It's whatever. If I lose, oh well. But that's how we handle it. That's just the way it was. I think things are a lot different now, though. Things are definitely a lot different now. So what's up? The height difference comes with taller dudes range. Yeah. Well, guys, I've given you 3 hours of my free time. I even switched the convo up to some dumb shit, man. And that's what happens when you're on here for so long talking shit. Like myself. I really wouldn't call it talking shit, just giving my thoughts to the whole minimum wage thing. It's not going to work. Raising the wages is not going to keep up with inflation. Inflation's already out the roof. I mean, you'd probably have to make now, just in my opinion, like to be considered in a decent, like even 10,000 a month's not. It's not a lot right now. It sounds like a lot. It's really not. I say you'd probably have to make, and this really depends on the state you live in too, because it's really it differentiates on the state you live in because the cost of living is different. But I would say you'd probably have to make about mm, in the state of Texas, you'd probably have to make at least about maybe 15,000 a month. I know that sounds like a lot or like a little like man, I think really the state of Texas, I'm like, yep. If you have a mortgage, a car note, kids, wife and all that, probably about 20K a month. You probably have to make. And if you are single, no kids, probably about 15 a month. Just giving my opinion on this. That's the way this economy's headed. You used to be able to make 30,000 a year and you were good. You used to be able to make 40,000 a year. That was the niche. If you made 50,000 a year, 60 even better. Shit, if you made 100,000 a year, you were like, man, I'm making it in this world, man. Now it's like 100,000 a year. Don't even sound like a lot, bruh. It doesn't. You know, I've met people who have made like similar, maybe like 100,000, 120, and they're still struggling. Like that's crazy thinking about it because back in like 2019, 2018, if you made that kind of money, you made 100,000 a year, you made a 125, dude, that's a lot, right? You made a lot of money. That's a lot. But now, like 100,000, it's like, it doesn't really sound like a lot. You see what I'm saying? I think that's why people get confused about the wage hikes the most. And I've actually fell for that so much is that they just think that, well, according to the numbers, I'm making more. And it's like, well, yeah, you kind of are, but has your quality of life changed dramatically, like long term? That's the question you got to ask yourself. Like, has my quality of life changed? And if it hasn't changed for like long term, it's then like you still feel like you're in a rat race, like an endless rat race that you're still trying to find that dollar amount. And so you get that raise to 30 and then you still find out that the grass wasn't greener as much as you thought it was going to be. And you're just like, fuck, now I need to make 40. And then you get 40. And then you're like, damn, I need to make $50 an hour. There that's why I think it's a smoke and mirrors argument when it comes to the wage debate. Do I want people to make more money? Yeah. I want people to prosper, make money. That's just a generous person to me. I don't want to see people down. I'm not like one of these streamers that are like, oh, I got all these fast cars, I got all these women, and you ain't shit and blah. Man, I don't do that dumb shit. I want everyone to be successful. I'm not going to kick a man when he's down. Now, I want people to generally find success in life, whatever that niche may be. You might be a great salesman. This guy may be good at cars. This woman may be a good hairstylist. This guy may be the best barber in Texas. I don't know. This guy may be a welder. This guy may, I want to see people succeed in life. I don't want to see people struggling. And that's one of the hardest parts that breaks my heart the most is seeing some of my friends and family struggling to barely make ends meet because our politicians refuse to do the right thing. And I think that's the frustrating part is that you have to work like two jobs now, ton of overtime, just to make decent, if not barely decent money, for a dollar that's probably going to collapse anyway, and taxes continue to go up, and you just feel like you're just in this endless rat race that just never fucking ends. So yeah, it frustrates me. I hate seeing people struggle. It's like, but the only thing though is I can never I can never kick a man who tries. But one thing I don't like is I don't like people who don't try. That's the only thing that, like, I get it, like, you give up, you've thrown in the towel, and I get it that you're gonna have a month or a bad month or two where you're gonna feel like that's the case and you're gonna throw in the towel and whatever. That happens. There's no such thing as like a perfect way of thinking. You're gonna have certain days like that. I have certain days like that. But just because you feel like you're not where you're at, or you feel like you're not making the money you think you should be making, doesn't mean you should walk around with an attitude problem or treat others like crap because you just feel like, you're in a place where you're not happy. So therefore, why should I give anybody respect when I'm not happy? And it's like, well, that's not a way to live. When you live like that and you treat people like crap, then be expecting to get it back. I always look at it like what you throw out, and you get back what you put into this world. And I'm a firm believer of that. And so if you're the type of person that's negative all the time, throws out bad energy, you have a sense of entitlement, you don't really want to try to improve, and you're like this all the time, okay, fine. But just understand what you put into this world, you're going to get back. And that's just the way it is. It's held win. It's just, you know, I've met people like that. And to be fair, there are miserable people that make a ton of money. I've met those too. You know, I used to work with this lady at Walmart, and she had a rotten attitude. Like every day she was always unhappy about something. And me and her got an argument one day in the parking lot. She was accusing me of not doing something, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking. This was when I was employed at the time there. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. She's yelling and screaming at me, and I said, ma'am, calm down. And she's like, I'll send you home. And I'm like, okay, send me home. And so she didn't send me home, but I come in every day and I would be nice to her, and she was still rude every day. Anyways, I told her one day she was being real rude again. This was probably going on for a couple of years now. She would walk into a room and everybody would leave. That's how negative the cloud was. As soon as you saw that dark cloud come, everybody just leave, scatter. They just didn't want to be around her. So one day, she was just in a bad mood, and I was trying to break the ice. It's like a psychological thing, and I was trying to like change the subject and say, hey, how's your day, blah blah. And she's just, tell me how shitty her day was, and she was in a bad mood. And I told her, I said, hey, I'm not trying to be mean, but why you always have like such a negative attitude? And I'm like, look, and I'm not saying that disrespectfully, but I noticed that you have a bad attitude all the time. Then she said she was unhappy with her life and where it was, and she was like, I think 70 or something like that, and she didn't think she'd be like a manager at Walmart. And I'm like, okay, I understand, like, your frustration. Like, I get it, you know. And in the grand scheme of things, I could understand why you're upset because, the bigger picture is our dollar's going to collapse. So I get it. But at the same time, I told her, yeah, I mean, generally, I don't think I'm where I should be at in life either. But, understand that that doesn't give me the right to treat others like crap. Just food for thought. Yeah, you're upset, miserable, blah blah blah. I mean, I get it, but it doesn't give you the right to treat others with, disrespect. You still need to be professional. You still need to talk to your employees like people. And if you want respect, understand you're gonna have to give that respect what? Back. But we live in a society where people feel, oh, well, I could just disrespect anyone at any time, whenever I want. And if you don't, and you're still going to have to respect me regardless. Regardless, you're still going to have to be nice to me. And that's just, to me, not feasible. I used a big word for once. It is not feasible to think that way. You cannot disrespect people and expect them to respect you in return. It won't last that long. And if people don't tell you, they'll show you by body language, walking away from you, avoiding you. Just saying, this is the way it is. I'm not saying you can't treat people like crap. You can do whatever you want. But understand this though. You can do whatever you want. But whatever you put in this world, and remember I said this before I leave, whatever you put into this world, you get back. So understand, whatever energy you throw out there, it's going to come back. Whatever goes around comes around. It's old saying. Whatever goes around comes around. Understand, you get back what you put into this world. So if you want to treat people like crap, go ahead. I don't care. That's your business. But understand, you're going to get it right back. Just understand, be prepared for that energy, because that's the energy that you've already placed and you put out. So that's the energy you're going to get back. When you understand that and you're cool with that, by no means do it. But I'm telling you, the results and the consequences of that, that's what's going to happen. And I think you already know that. So however you carry yourself is your business. Just like how I carry myself is my business. Not everybody acts the same. That's why we have different types of personalities. Yeah. So do whatever you want. It is within your right. Who am I to tell you? I can't tell you. I never understood the whole energy universe till I got older. First, I thought it was just about, you can just be whoever you want to be and be a certain way and people respect you and blah, blah, blah. And I realized it's not always entirely accurately true. I realized that in order to give respect, you got to get respect. In order to get respect, you got to give respect. This is the way it is. So go ahead. I mean, it's in your constitution. You want to do whatever you want. That's your power, man. I'm just saying, you're going to get back what you put in this world. So if that's the type of person you are, that's the type of person you are. All right. Well, it's 3:05. I'm fucking tired, and I pushed a 3-hour video for you guys when I know damn well I wasn't trying to stay on this long. I got to get some sleep, man, and I appreciate you guys for, taking some time to watch and, you know, comments and stuff. I appreciate all the people in here who taking the time to um, watch my videos. Feel free to, comment or to, come in and visit, hear what I have to say. Because honestly, I'm nobody important. I know that. I'm not special. I know that. I'm not on here asking for donations or asking for money. I just spill my mind every now and then. I don't even do this every day anymore. I just come on here once a week, twice a week, if that. Well, this week is only once a week, so next week maybe, and I'll be on here again next Tuesday, next Monday and Tuesday night. So you can tell that I really don't come on here like I used to, but when I feel like speaking, sharing my mind, sharing my thoughts, I don't have a problem like hitting the record button and just seeing where this goes. You know, but I have fun. It's fun getting on here every now and then and shooting the shit and talking to people and getting to know, getting the guess talk to some people in the comments. So for everyone that participated in this discussion, I appreciate it. At least I have some people out there that are listening. It may not be too many, but I appreciate those people who come on here and you know I guess have conversation with because nothing's worse than talking to yourself, right? Nothing's worse than getting on here and having these types of convos and people aren't engaging or not. And I've been on streams like that, and that's also another reason why I don't get on like I used to, because I used to do this a lot every day. Now it's like once a week. It's like, holy shit, I'm on here once a week. It's crazy. Yeah, I just think the minimum wage thing is just it's a smoke and mirrors. That's all. It's just to distract us. I just say it's all distraction. It's all distraction. It's like, well, yeah, sure. All right, man. Well, to the 3 people that are watching, give you a shout out still for the 6 likes for people who've sat and watched this video for an hour, 2 or 3. I really do appreciate you guys for commenting. I really do. But yeah, I'm head to sleep because I'm tired and I got to get some sleep. And I will see you guys next week.